Hey everyone, and thank you for joining again for another Flameless Fireside. Tonight we are going to be interviewing Shawn Gordon. Shawn is the one of the creators and moderators of, I guess he would be the owner of LDS Dating. It's one of the Facebook groups, as well as his partner and him have also created LDS Dimensions, a free online dating platform for LDS people. So, for those of you that have not seen that, we recommend you go check it out, and it'll be awesome. Other than that, we look forward to seeing everybody tonight, and it's going to be a great show talking about Battle of the Sexes.
All right, great. Well, welcome tonight, Shawn. I don't know if you've had a chance to see any of our other podcasts or kind of tune in on YouTube and see any of the past shows that we've done, but kind of the whole idea of this show is to get a chance to know you, the great Shawn Gordon that we've seen many videos of, as well as kind of discuss some of the crazy issues which you are in the thick of most of the time for the crazy world that we know as the LDS dating world, which is often tumultuous and filled with lots of projection and hurt feelings. So that is our show, and that is what we like to do here. So to get started, we always like to get to know you, and then we kind of get into our main topic, which it sounds like, gosh, with you, Shawn, you've got such a wealth of experience in this realm. We could probably go for days talking about multiple topics, but we always have to choose a couple and kind of narrow it down. So we kind of want to talk about what's been going on with this battle of the sexes, men hating women, women hating men, posting stuff that's just like, you're not worthy of your priesthood. You've seen all the posts, that kind of thing. Yeah. So we will get into that. But first, we want to get to know you and kind of find out your journey and how you got to where you're at now. Tell us a little bit about yourself, LDS dating, how that whole thing started. Just fill us in.
All right, then. I'll keep it succinct. So, in the long, long ago, I was born in the Mormon church, LDS church, if you will. My family goes back in the church to the 1840s. My great-great-grandfather joined the church when the first missionaries went to England. He came over here. So it goes way back. So I was born in the covenant, with my sisters. And I stayed active for a long time, despite my parents' divorce and, my mom not being active. I'm 12 years old and I'm walking 2 miles to church by myself. And so I pretty much fell away. Gosh, I was about 21-ish. Is that right? Yeah, thereabouts. And then came back, became an elder, fell away again, met the gal who I ended up marrying. I think I was 24. And so I'm 57 now for frame of reference. So she didn't like Mormons. So I didn't, I stopped going to church. I was never against the church, but, like a lot of people, you go through things. It's like, what about horses in the Book of Mormon? There weren't horses. And what about this? What about that? And I was always very intellectually curious about a lot of
archaeological stuff.
Well, obscure things, the nature of heaven, the origin of heaven, the atonement and how this works. And, sort of like the details, like you've got, you think about it for a minute, there's a tree of knowledge, there's a tree of life. So these sort of seem kind of important. They almost seem like they might be infinite types of things that might be pivotal to the origin and nature of God. So, I get into these weird sort of, self, thinking, or thinking to myself. So anyway, so I ended up drinking. I didn't drink when I met her. I had drank before and I quit, and she loved to drink. And over time, she just drank. Oh, I think the longest I ever saw her sober was 3 days. So my ex-wife and I, we were together for 25 years, and towards the end there, I was probably going through 3 bottles of vodka a week myself. And I'd get up at 6 a.m, go to the gym, self-employed, had 30 employees, I was running my own company. I managed to, I guess I wasn't an alcoholic. I just drank a lot. And So marriage kept getting worse and worse there towards the end.
That sounds like I wasn't an alcoholic, but I was an alcoholic.
Well, I would always stop. I would always stop. I didn't have a problem. Like I stopped drinking for a few weeks. I never had a problem with it.
I wasn't addicted. I was dedicated.
That's probably a better description. So it was like, I guess it was June, about 8.5 years ago, when it was really falling apart. And I suddenly felt compelled to maybe go back to church. So I was still married, and I wandered over to the ward here. I probably still smelled like gin or vodka from the night before. And I just sat down, and a very nice guy sat next to me, and he, introduced himself and ushered me into, a Sunday school and all that, introduced me to the bishop and all that. And, so I was going, and I was struggling with my marriage. And so it was beginning of September. She decided, yes, I want a divorce. Now, she was cheating on me and doing drugs and running drugs and leaving me with the kids and disappearing in the middle of the night. So, I mean, I've been there. Like, people tell me, oh, I know I have this story. I was abused. I mean, she would attack me. It's very difficult when a woman physically attacks you. What do? You try to get away. I'm not going to let her hit me in the face, so you're trying to block the punches without causing, damage. And she'd get bruised on the inside of her arm from me blocking her punches. And then she'd tell people I attacked her. Well, it didn't make any sense. I'm going to punch the inside of her arm. It didn't make any sense. And, she'd call the police. I'd find burner phones where she was, talking to guys she was picking up at bars. I mean, it was a mess. So we filed for divorce in September.
Were you and I married to the same person? Because your story sounds a lot like my ex.
I was going to say that actually. I think he was married to my ex.
Yeah.
So you guys all feel me. So anyway, so we filed for divorce in January, and I started drinking really hard. Didn't know what I wanted to do. Come like mid-October, and I was still going to church. Missionaries would come over, and I'd be sitting there with a tall glass of vodka, chatting with the missionaries at the same time. And
how else would you be doing it?
Exactly.
Yeah, I think that's wonderful. I think it's good. I don't care, alcohol or not. If you're chatting with the missionaries, it's a good thing.
Yeah, well, exactly. So it gets to mid-October. I went on a 3-day bender, and I got to the end of it, and my kids were at their cousins, and because the kids were staying with me, and I just went, I got to make a choice here. I can go and be a slut like I was when I was younger and hit the bars and just go pick up women, or I can turn this around. And so, I got on my knees and I prayed, and, I felt very inspired to make a choice. And I said, okay, that's it. I never touched another drop of alcohol since then.
Wow.
And, about 9 months later, I was able to go to the temple for the first time.
So cold turkey, literally just.
No AA meetings.
Nothing.
No, nothing like that.
No.
Crazy.
Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah. So I got back into church, and just after that, my brother's also a software guy. I'm a software guy. So I'm like, I didn't like LDS Planet, and I didn't like how a lot of these worked because they were meant to sort of manipulate you and get the money from you. So I designed a dating system. That's ldsdimension.com, which is free. And then this LDS dating group was on Facebook, and I was in the group. I knew the guy who was running it, and he got engaged, and he asked me if I'd be an admin. I said, sure. And there was only maybe 1,000 people in it at the time. And there was another admin. And so he made me an admin. I went through and I cleaned up the 500 waiting requests to get into the group. And she's like, oh, I don't think I want to do this anymore. And she disappeared. And so suddenly it was my group. And I said, okay, well, I'm going to do something different because I've been in these singles groups. I'm going to focus on breaking these horrible habit patterns people have. I'm kind of a hybrid because I didn't go through those single years as a Mormon. I was out of it. So I've got the perspective of having grown up in it, but I also have this perspective of an outsider. So I see a lot of this toxic behavior. I remember when I was young, they tell girls, oh, if you do anything that's sexual, you're like a piece of chewed up gum, like you're never.
Oh my gosh.
I tell my daughter that all the time.
Yeah. Or a nail hammered into a post. So there's all these really weird things, these habit patterns. And so, I was going to the singles outfits, and I would see the same group of people just hang together. And then I would see the women complain that no guy was asking them to dance. And it's like, because you're standing in a herd.
Yeah.
And if there's a herd of women dancing together, and I come over and I ask one to dance and she rejects me, I'm now rejected by all of them. Or if she says, oh, not me, but here, dance with my 6'2" friend.
Oh, that's always fun.
Yeah, and I'm 5'7", and that happened to me. And so I started seeing all of this really bad behavior, and I'm like, okay, I'm a tough love kind of guy anyway. And so I decided to just take that approach in the group. And there's people who rail against it, and there's people who learn a lesson and they make progress. And we've got a clinical psychologist in the group, Dr. Randy Gilchrist. He writes a weekly column for our website, and he also.
I was looking at your LDS dating, and I was reading through it. You got your clinical psychologist up here, but I thought that the funnest part down here was basically, hey, we need to be able to know that you're a person. And then in the end, it's just like, listen, the admins can do whatever the hell they want.
Yeah.
I was like, that pretty much says who you are right there.
Well, that's the thing. I kicked out a gal yesterday, and so she starts PMing me. The behavior is utterly predictable every time. Why did you kick me out? Well, why does it matter? Because there's nothing you're going to tell me now that, and I just say, does it matter now? Yes, it does, because you were wrong and you didn't have a right. And it's like, I already knew it was going to go that way. Anybody who comes to message me after they get kicked out, that's the way it goes. And they always, invariably you hear, you don't know me. I said, let me tell you what the 3 things are in your head that you're about to say. And I write them out there. Well, you're just a big poopy pants. So
you don't think there's ever a time when there's a misunderstanding that they could clarify, like coming to you and saying, hey, this is what happened. Like, you think you've got it.
Hey, judge had pounded the gavel. It's done.
I know. I just wonder, because sometimes I feel like I misunderstood. So I would want to have my side expressed.
No, and there's people who have approached me like that, right? And like a gal the other day, she, instead of addressing the conversation publicly, where she had dug a hole and just kept digging and digging, and I'd given her an opportunity to get out, but she didn't take it. And then she PMs me and she's like, I feel like I should explain. And she runs through this whole litany of things. I said, well, you should go back and just say, you know what? I misspoke and I misunderstood. I'm sorry, let's start again. Like, own it, do a mea culpa, own it. She wouldn't do it. She wanted to leave the group instead. It's like, okay, but you're not learning anything from the experience. You're not learning how to communicate. And I have had people come to me, and I have become friends with people, from that exchange. There's a guy in the group now you might have seen. I don't want to name him because there's people in here that are friends with him. And he can be really abrasive. But I was doing a thing for a while where people I butted heads with that, said I was wrong and whatever. I said, let's jump on a chat together live right now in the group and let's talk it through, because then this is useful for people to see. They hear your opinion and they hear my response. And I did that with a few people. And for some reason, people are like afraid, like, what am I going to do? Jump through the camera and strangle you? I mean, I'm a nice guy, but I'm just a no BS kind of dude. And
hey, just to interrupt you real quick, I got to step out for just a minute. My daughter started calling me and she's texting me saying she needs to talk real quick. So I will be back. I apologize. I'll be back though. So just keep going.
It's okay. You weren't even talking. I was talking.
You're doing a great job. I mean, just keep going. So I'll be back.
So anyway, he can be super abrasive.
You jumped through the camera. You started strangling him. What happened next?
So like with this particular dude, I got to know him. I understood his story more. So I understood where he was coming from and where these ideas were coming from. So when he was sort of lashing out at people, I knew why, and I didn't just boot him, because of it. And, I would go and talk to him privately and say, hey, why don't you cool the jets a little bit? So, I try to have relationships with people, and I've got people in this group, they're messaging me and they're calling me, at night. I'll jump on the phone 10, 11 o'clock at night with people that are having trouble, and relationship questions. I mean, there's a dude in the group that got married, and last summer, he starts telling me this story about what's going on with his wife and her ex-husband, and the fact that his wife's pregnant now, and he's running through timelines. I'm like, dude, that is the ex-husband's child. He's like, what? I go, think about the timeline and what's been going on in her behavior. It's his. And he was all ready to leave her. She's like, oh, no. I said, dude, get a DNA test when that child's born, because I'm telling you, it's not yours. So got 2 more months.
Oh, we don't have the conclusion to that story.
Well, you can get a DNA
Okay.
test prior to the baby being born.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I told him to do that too, but he's like, well, then she'll be mad. I said, dude, if it's not yours, do you want to be raising another man's kid on top of the 3 kids that they had before that he's not paying child support for?
Wow.
Yeah. And I mean, I've just done this for so long, just between business, my psychology background, I'm just almost never wrong. And people get really pissed when I say that, but I've got incredibly good instincts when I meet somebody. I did this experiment, I don't know, 7 years ago in one of the other LDS dating groups. And I said, what I was trying to do is get people to comment on other people's Facebook profiles. The idea was, what impression are you giving to a stranger? So you're in these dating groups, you're kind of interacting, somebody goes and looks at your profile. What is my instant reaction to the kind of person that you are? So I put that out there. I said, here, go ahead and look at mine and tell me what you think. I won't be offended. And I only got a couple of people to do it. And I had people say, do mine. So I'd go and do it. And I would do sort of like a psychological profile of what their personality was like. And it turned into this giant thing. I ended up doing like 300 and I was wrong like twice. And I had some venture capitalists that was in the group message me, say, you need to figure out a way to monetize that because you're really stinking good at it. Yeah. So it was a really weird thing. But yeah,
Okay.
I behavior patterns and patterns in general. It's like in computers, there's patterns. And so behavior, there's patterns. Rarely do people move out of these patterns once you identify the track that they're in.
Have you ever heard of a polymath thinker?
I don't know. Give me the description.
They say that Leonardo da Vinci, Thomas Edison, people that are able to look at certain, they find patterns in almost everything. That's how they operate. That's how they interact with the world.
Yeah.
But it's a new concept to me, and it's been recently made known to me that I am a polymath thinker. But the way that you're talking makes me think that you might be as well.
Oh, I probably am. I mean, if you take an IQ test, you'll probably score high. I get crazy high scores on IQ tests because it's almost all pattern matching and looking for patterns. And I look for patterns in everything. It's like my version of feng shui.
Gotcha.
Okay, so I have like a list of questions.
I'm gonna let Celeste run with that list.
He's talking a lot, but I'm like, I'm going to ask him about that. So can I just ask you a couple real quick?
Yeah.
Okay. So when you were talking about the guy that had that might not have the kid that is his,
Yeah.
So do you think that it would have been a bad thing for him, or would be, because I know it's still up in the air right now, to be okay even if it isn't his biological child? And the reason I ask is because I've got adopted children. So I'm curious because it seems like you've got a really strong opinion that he shouldn't raise that kid because it's not his. But in my heart, I'm thinking, but why he can, right? Like he could be a father to that child. So
Yes, but it's a betrayal. That's the issue.
I know, but if he doesn't have an issue with it,
the kid's not the problem.
The ex-husband is still there.
I know.
Like a block away having sex with his wife.
I know, I get that. I'm saying if he's okay with the scenario, because it sounds like he doesn't want to get the DNA done, right? So if he's okay with it possibly not being his, like if he's okay with it, what's your thought on that?
Listen, can he be a loser? And is that okay for him to just remain a loser? Is that okay?
He's a loser. Like that's not what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to say that.
I totally understand where you're going.
Okay, I hope so.
So, I mean, there's a longer, like I've known the guy for a while and all the attempts he's made at dating, and this is a long distance one. And, he's very desperate to be married, never had kids of his own. And he was willing to take on these 3 stepkids. And so it's like, I know all the backstory, and because he so desperately doesn't want to be single again and go through that process again, he's doing this. And for those of you who are in horrible relationships, how much you don't look at the panoply of crap that's going on. And you look back later and you go, holy hell, how did I stay in that?
So
Right.
you're saying it's more that you personally were trying to protect him from like the whole situation, not so much having to raise a child that isn't his.
Right. I mean, I've got 3 stepkids, and they see their dad like once or twice a year. So, I raise them, and I have been for nearly 6 years. So, one has moved out now. The other 2 are 14 and 16. So, I got them fairly young. The oldest was 13 when we got married. So, yeah, raising those kids, it's a real decision you've got to go through.
Right.
And I think it's actually easier that I don't have their dad in the area, because he's, I'm not going to speak ill of him.
It's just easier.
Yeah. He's not a motivated fella. Let's say.
I will say that there is something to be said about somebody that walks into a situation with kids that are not theirs and takes them on as their own.
Yeah.
Right. I guess that's where I was trying to get at. I'm like, if he's willing to do that, despite the background of it, I just was thinking that's a positive trait in him. So.
Okay, so he walking into the situation saying, okay, here's 3 kids, you don't have anybody, I love you, I'm going to take on these 3 kids because I love you. And
Right.
then we're going to be in a relationship, and it's going to be us and the kids, and we're going to grow a family.
Right.
And now she's going out and screwing somebody else and coming back with yet one more kid. That was not in the cards. That was not part of the deal.
Yeah, possibly.
Screwing the father of the children. So it's like, if you're going to do that, how about we get divorced and you guys just get remarried?
Right.
I
mean, WTF, mate.
Totes. Totally totes.
And my ex-wife had 2 kids when I met her. I made that choice that we were going to be together. I would take on her kids. And I mean, I was there to be their friend. I was not there to be their dad. They already had a dad. He was involved. He was a great guy. Awesome stuff. And then when we got separated, that relationship got separated as well. Okay. Yeah. They went back to their dad. She got a new guy. That guy took on my kids as well as them. So I've been there. I know what it's like. And no, this whole sleep.
I was trying to save him.
I was going to say that my point was with all of that, even though I was misunderstood, is that it sounded like at first I thought you were trying to say it was mainly just because you don't want to raise someone else's kid. But once you clarified, you were trying to say you were just trying to protect him from the whole scenario. So I got it.
So what is your next question, young lady?
I've got a slew. Okay.
Are we taking questions?
Oh, she's taking notes.
I have my little notepad. Okay.
All right.
I have to say, and I was taking notes. Okay. So, so from very, very beginning, and we're backtracking from when you first started, you had said, and it was like a half a sentence, that you would walk 2 miles to church alone.
Yeah.
And so that kind of hit home for me because I did the same thing. I used to walk to church alone all the time. And my family was less active, well, not even active. And I would do it anyway. I just kind of had that drive in me. So I was curious as to the storyline behind that.
So, I mean, you had a different motivation than I did. I worshiped my dad, and I was the only son. And I had 3 younger sisters at the time and an older half sister who was, off and whatever, hitchhiking across the United States. So it was important to me to keep the, priesthood, patrilineal thing or whatever, and make my dad proud, because I felt like it was the right thing to do. And I wanted to represent my dad in my family because, it's weird. My mom's often a lot like my ex-wife in some ways, but without the alcohol and drugs.
So funny how that happens.
Yeah,
it's weird. But in any case, so that was probably a motivating factor, for a long time. And
cool.
So just piggybacking off that, because I remember your story, and for some reason it was somewhat similar to my own. I too did that for a while, where my family just stopped going, and for whatever reason it was. But once I got to the point of I was in college, then it became, who am I doing this for? Why am I doing this? Okay, I want to start doing stuff for me as opposed to this is what's expected of me. Is that possibly along the same lines of where you decided to kind of go off the rails?
Not really. Yeah, I was treated pretty. I moved into my dad's house when I was 16, and I had great friends in my ward, but the bishopric were horrible. Like I had longish hair; it was down to about here, and I had a long beard. People said I looked like Jesus all the time. But they had a real hard on about guys that looked like that in my ward, and I would get treated really poorly. And at a certain point, you're just like, screw it. And I'd go to the singles events, and man, if you didn't hit the checklist, oh, where did you go on your mission? I didn't go. Well, when are you going to BYU? I'm not going. Just like, this checklist thing is so irritating. It's so self-defeating.
Yeah.
And so it was a frustration. And two things. So you didn't have the internet back then. And like I said, I was very interested in all this esoterica, and they had the Know Your Religion series at the time where you could go to a stake center or whatever, and there'd be a speaker. And you could find out a little bit, but it was so difficult to find any of this stuff. Like now, I like reading the Book of Enoch and Dead Sea Scrolls and Gnostic Gospels and all of this esoterica, because you start to see these things where they tie together. Even the Popol Vuh from the Maya. I'm a believer in the Central American model for the Book of Mormon. So John Sorensen's Mormon Codex book, all these things became available later. And so I was bored because we covered the same thing year after year after year after year. It's like, oh, if I got to read the Old Testament one more time, I'm going to kill myself. So, it was boredom and being ostracized. So. You may continue.
I know, I'm like, you're going to say anything. Okay, so interesting, when I used to go to church and walk alone, I got teased a lot at church. And so I understand, there is a lot of negative views on people that have different types of families or have different looks or whatever. I think it's changing somewhat in the church, but it's still definitely there. And which kind of goes into where you were saying, where you would go to church and smell like vodka or whatever, but you were there trying to learn. And I've tried to teach my kids that if you smell someone who smells like smoke, or if someone walks in holy jeans and slippers, or they're even if they're drunk, whatever, like if they're there, it's a miracle. And we should be so excited and so, grateful that they're there despite the typical, what they should look like coming to church. So I was just going to give you kudos for that. So
our doctrine is great. Our culture is toxic.
Yeah. I agree.
That's a great way of putting it.
Yep. I agree.
Everybody talks about the church is true, but the people are not. But I like
well,
that.
we're imperfect. That's for sure.
I think that Brigham Young, one of the leaders at some point said, Mormons are like manure. They're great if you spread them around, but they stink if you get them all in one place.
I think there's some truth to that. I've kind of always noticed that the closer you get to Mormon Mecca, or at least dating Mecca, as we call it in Utah, it kind of tends to become a little bit more crazy town.
I think it's getting better in general, all around, because we have been, converting so many people. So you have a little less of the multi-generational snobbishness. Oh, I'm descended from Martin Harris, as though that means anything.
Yeah, after my mission, when I was kind of trying to figure out like where I want to go, I sort of decided that Utah was the natural migration of most return missionaries, and so I should probably follow suit. And my family are all converts, when I was really little. So I was more or less raised in the church, but my parents joined when I was like 2 years old. So I didn't really know any different. But no one in my family had ever served a mission. Nobody came across the plains with the handcart pioneers. I was part of the outsiders, right? So when I moved to Utah, I wasn't like part of that culture. I wasn't part of that group. I didn't have like 18 uncles down the road that all are members of the church in some various form or fashion, or have been kicked out or whatever they might be. But I noticed one thing that I thought was really kind of crazy to me. I would see people, and it's like if they wanted to drink something or if they wanted to smoke something, they had to do it very flamboyantly. Like, look at me, everybody, I'm smoking, or I'm drinking. Like, aren't I a rebel? And I'm like, nobody freaking cares. Knock yourself out, take that cigarette, smoke it through your butt cheeks. I really don't care.
Yeah.
But somehow, some way, you've got to make it known, like, look, I'm rebelling and I smoke. Hang on a second. I got a scratch and sniff gold star sticker for you. Just one second. Let me get that out for you. So it was really weird. Like, I couldn't handle Utah. So, I mean, I think I lasted 6-7 months and then I was like, peace out. I got to go.
Yeah.
It wasn't for me. And I think I knew people there that had left Utah once in their life, and that was to go to Idaho. And I'm like, that's kind of like Utah light, you know? It was crazy to me.
Yeah.
So, I'm like, look, I am from outer darkness or the mission field, whatever you guys want to call it. I didn't live here. I didn't grow up here. I knew lots of people in my high school that were not members. I probably knew a handful that actually were. And that was kind of the reverse of how most people there live. So it's a weird, weird culture if you're not from it. I think when people join the church and kind of start getting into the culture, sometimes that can drive them out of the church again.
Oh yeah, I've seen it. The Mean Girls here in Huntington Beach. I had befriended a couple of recent converts, and I connected them to each other because they're about the same age, they're in the same industry, they lived in the same area. So they started to go to church together. One of them, stunning, gorgeous, the other, rather plain. And the gal so these are, they're about 40-ish. And the gal who's in charge of the Relief Society for the Singles Ward, it was just Mean Girls Club. Like, she approached the one gal in the bathroom, like her first day there. If you think you're going to find a husband here, you got another thing coming. It's like, what is wrong with you? And both of those women fell away.
Wow. Bitter titty much?
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
Wow. That's so sad.
There's something to be said about the type of people that thrive under certain conditions. Like for me, when I get around a bunch of hoity-toity LDS people, I am the rebel. I am the outcast. I am the guy that, they're just like, that's the bad boy over there. But when I get around a bunch of people that are drinking and smoking and freaking having the whores over every night,
you're the goody-goody.
I'm the goody-goody. And it's just like, and I do better when I'm in those atmospheres. I read my scriptures more. I pray more. But when I'm around everybody else, I'm like, you guys are all doing the praying for me. Have it at it.
Yeah.
So you're in California, right?
Yeah, SoCal.
Okay. And how long have you been there now?
I mean, I was born here. I lived in Australia for a little while when I was 18, but
okay.
I've been here my whole life.
Okay. And you're a computer
whiz, geek, nerd, whatever.
Okay, that works.
I mean, now when I was programming, so I was a 15, which was unusual in the 70s, and punch cards.
Oh yeah.
Reading Hallrith code like it's a fine novel.
That's right. No, the nice thing about the punch cards that they said, who was it? I can't remember his name. He was really famous. Steve Jobs. I think it was Wozniak's.
Wozniak is one, yeah.
There you go. He said that the early days of computer programming basically just taught you patience. You had to go through, you had to program, you had to do everything right on each one of the cards. And then as you send the cards through, if one of them was off, then you have to go through the entire thing and try to find that card. You did that. That's awesome.
Yeah, you did not want to drop your deck.
Right.
It's like, yeah. Doing mainframe assembler on punch cards with a water cool machine. Those were the days. That's when men program. Now it's all these soy boys at Google that are unionizing and don't know how to do proper memory management. Travis.
Yeah. Shawn, I got to be honest with you, man. I don't know how you stay in California. I know you're born and raised and all that, but dude, there is a mass exodus coming from where you're at just because of all the soy boys and all that craziness. But somehow you're sticking it out. You're going to be like, You're gonna need to like board up your windows or something. They'll come for you eventually.
You trying to do like a last man standing or something over there, Shawn?
I tell you, I had this house built 23 years ago. So I've lived here. My daughter was born 3 weeks after I moved in 22 and a half years ago. And I love it. There's things I got to fix now, but I'm 15 minutes from the beach. I'm an hour and a half from the mountains. I'm 2 hours from the Mexican border. I'm an hour and a half from the desert. I love where I live. And believe me, I've been heavily involved in politics. I've run for office a couple of times. I know exactly what's going on with, the vote manipulation and counts and how they do a lot of it. And, this is why we have that idiot Newsom as governor right now who couldn't find his head with, in any case, yeah, I mean, I'm watching it. I started looking around at property in other places. It's crazy how expensive it's gotten, but I love my house and I love where I live. And so I don't know, we'll see. It's a weird time right now. My older son, he's 25. He's been in Australia for almost 5 years now, and he's looking at coming back, and he's just messaging me right now. And well, he's got to come back. He's overstayed his visa by almost 4 years. But yeah, so the plan is there, but the news that he gets over there, it's just fear porn. Like he's messaging me earlier. He's like, "Are you okay?" It looks like, there's nobody left alive in Los Angeles the way they cover the news over there. And I said, it's fine. If you look at the data from the CDC for California, they got the charts up. Most of the people dying are over 65 and or Hispanic. So if they were to actually address the problem areas, which, several cities in the Southland, because it's a cultural thing, the families hang out together and they're in tight, close quarters. They do their barbecues every week and they're always getting together. They got 10 people wedged into a minivan and one person gets sick and it spreads like wildfire through the community. But if you look at all the infection and death numbers, the Hispanic community or Latin, whatever you want to call it, Latino, is overrepresented by like double. They have more than all other groups combined. So get them the vaccine. Anyway, I love my house, so we'll see.
Interesting.
So, it's interesting. You probably don't remember this, but at one point on LDS dating, somebody had posted something about heavy metal and kind of what was the best type of music or something like that.
I remember the heavy metal post, but
yeah, I mean, it's been a little while. I don't know, within the last year or so. But I remember specifically you happen to know Kurt Vanderhoof. And I was...
Do you know him? I put out a few of his albums, or a couple of them.
You put out a few of them?
Yeah, I started a record label that I ran for like 15 years. So I put out a couple of his, was it 2 or 3 of his Presto Ballet albums.
Huh. Interesting.
So you know Kurt?
I don't know him. No. I used to love Metal Church growing up as a kid.
Okay. So yeah, he.
You found it?
Gosh.
Oh yeah, see right there.
Oh, yeah. I don't even remember the replies on that, but
Presto Ballet was his sort of prog metal side project outside of Metal Church.
This is Everett being Everett right here. If you say you like heavy metal, but you don't know Metal Church, the Reverend, you don't really like heavy metal.
Well, Metal Church and Reverend are two. I mean, there was a singer named David Wayne, and Shawn will know who that is. Unfortunately, he's passed away, I don't know what, like 10, 15 years ago from a car wreck.
Or how we say COVID nowadays.
Yeah. And Kurt Vanderhoof was the guitarist in the band for Metal Church. And they were just, I mean, growing up as a kid, I mean, I had long hair. I played guitar. I did all that as well. And I thought that those guys were they were my favorite. He was just a phenomenal guitarist. So
I almost played keyboards for Kurt for a festival, because I'm a keyboardist, for a festival in Whittier, because the keyboardist had bailed out. And I'm like, well, I might be able to help you. And he ended up just sequencing them eventually. But you guys will have to check out my album. The band name is called Psychic for Radio.
Psychic for Radio. And we could start our own little band here. I mean, I could play guitar. You could do keyboards. Nick could do skin flute. We'd have it all covered. So
I did release a single
All right, yeah, you
that I
can
wrote
take
for
that
my
down.
wife a few months ago.
Notice the shotgun on my lap too. Yeah, that was. I was a little redneck growing up.
Nothing wrong with that, son.
Yep.
I love the I don't even know what it's called right now.
I was down in Texas.
You
The
got
mullet?
the Joe Dirt going on.
The little mullet.
The mullet. There you go.
Yeah, my hair gets really curly and wavy as
I
it
noticed
gets longer.
that.
So I actually used to put on. I'd put it on like an ironing board and have my brother iron it, iron it out, and try and get it all straightened out.
Get a little Jerry curl on that.
Get those Goldilocks going on.
It could have gone either way for me growing up. I could have been pure white trash or half white trash, and so somehow I just sort of ended up in the middle.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
So Celeste, did you have more questions?
Oh, I do. Oh, okay. So rumor has it that you have died twice. So I'm really curious about those stories.
It's a fabulous tale. All right, so I met my current wife, I think exactly 6 years ago. And it was interesting. We were both in long-term relationships that we were trying to terminate because they were not working. And she knew me from the group, LDS Dating, and I went to a fireside and she was there. Now, here's a tip for you guys. It's peacocking. I'm wearing a black shirt and black pants and a Jerry Garcia tie. So I look different than the other guys. And she came up and introduced herself. And this is what you ladies need to do. You see something, go for it. Don't stand there and go, oh, I hope he notices me. So she came and introduced herself. And it was about a month later. I mean, we got together once and we went on an official. We got together once. And I think it was like the week before Valentine's Day. And then Valentine's Day, we both had bad experiences with people we were dating and went, you know what, that's it. And we did this independently. We didn't discuss it. And so we both broke up and I asked her on a date then, and we went on a date and we both knew what we wanted. She was doing the things that I said, not because I said them, but because she came to the same conclusion herself in terms of how to pray, what was important, what do you bring to a relationship, not just what you want out of a relationship. And man, we got, I mean, 2 months later, we got engaged. So that was in April. And we decided to get married at the end of May. And so it's a week before our wedding. And we had moved her stuff in that day, that morning. And so we took the kids to the movies. And my blood pressure had been doing weird things for a little while. And I was getting weird feelings in my shoulders and sometimes in my hands. No chest pain, nothing like that. But my blood pressure would be fine and suddenly it would spike, 180 over 120. And so we go to the movies and I have these ginger wasabi crackers and I'm eating them and start to feel weird, like here. And I'm like, that's probably the crackers. But then I just really didn't feel right. So I'm thinking, maybe I'm having a reaction. I should get some Benadryl. So I tell Carly, and we leave the theater, and there's a pharmacy right there. We go in, and I see a blood pressure machine. So I'm like, oh, okay, I'll check it. And I've written a blog post about this with all the correct details. I might have some things wrong. So I check my blood pressure, and it's like 210 over 140. And I'm like, I don't know how to get it down. I don't know what to do. And it's a Saturday afternoon. All of our kids are in the theater.
Without the table.
What's that?
Meditation was off the table.
Yeah, no. So we get in the car. I call my mom who lives in the area to pick up the kids because they're in two different theaters. We text the kids to look for my mom. Carly has me put my doctor in the GPS while I call from the phone. And they're passing me around. And the last thing I remember, they finally said, you need to pull over and call 911. We think you're having a heart attack. And the last thing I remember saying is, why would I do that? I'm almost at the doctor. And boom, that was it. Heart stopped. And we were fairly close to the doctors at that point. So it was a Kaiser Center, if you know Kaiser, California. So Carly just runs the lights, gets there, pulls up in the front, goes running in, yells for help. They come out. I'm completely blue at this point. I've coded. And they get me out of the van somehow. And they're doing CPR, and they end up using the shock paddles eventually to shock me back. And I forget how many times they had to shock me. But my hair went gray quite a bit from that point. And I had like these two burn marks and these gray circles on my chest. So the ambulance got there, they got me in and they revived me. It was very weird because they were asking me like if I knew who I was, what I'd been doing, and I'm responding, but it's like when you're drunk and you want to not sound drunk, and so you try to be real careful with how you talk. And that was how it felt. And so we get to the hospital. Now, for what happened, I had what's called a Widowmaker heart attack. There's like a 1 or 2% survival rate because you die really fast.
Was that a Widowmaker?
The Widowmaker, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Widow creates a widow. Yep.
Yeah. So, so the fact that I was with her at that time, you know, we were in the car on our way. I never would have survived long enough for an ambulance to get there. And we were close when my heart stopped. Then we get to the hospital, my heart stopped again. You know, I died again. They had to shot me back to life again. But the cardiologist just finished with somebody else. They had me prepped and in 20 minutes. And I had like 100% blockage in one artery, like 95 in another, 85 in another. So I got like 5 stents. And yeah, it was the weirdest thing. Like the next day, you know, I'm waking up and I feel like I can't breathe. It's because there's a tube down my throat. And they're like, calm down, but they need to make sure I'm awake enough to take it out. So you're sitting there trying to breathe with this tube down your throat. And it was like, oh. So yeah, then I had a balloon that was up in my heart to pump it. And I'm drugged out of my mind, fortunately, because having your heart go poof, 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 unnaturally, it's really disorienting. But then when they pull that thing out of your crotch all the way from your heart, you feel this thing winding its way through your body. And they show me this big clamp and they're like, okay, we're going to have to apply pressure. Otherwise you'll bleed out in like a minute. You know, it's a major artery. I'm like, okay, that makes sense. I was ill prepared for the amount of pressure. So this thing was, they clamp it on and it's something like 200 PSI in your crotch. And I've never felt pain like that. I was screaming. I was hoping I would black out. Everybody was hoping I'd black out. I didn't black out. I wish I had blacked out. So, so let's see. So at that point, when was that? That Sunday, Monday. So I had it on Saturday. So they're going to move me to the Kaiser Hospital on Tuesday. And I could finally sit up and, you know, open an eye on Tuesday. So that by the end of the day, I was feeling better. And we were supposed to get married Saturday, this upcoming Saturday. So now it's Tuesday. And we both thought on our own, maybe we should do this in the hospital because, you know, I had custody of my kids. My son was in Australia. My daughter's here. She's still in high school. You know, my wife's going to have to, or, you know, my fiance is going to have to be able to care for me. And that includes like getting in a shower and, you know, cleaning up and stuff. So we called my bishop and we get to the Kaiser and we tell them we're going to do a wedding that night. Oh, the little Indian lady, she's the head nurse. She's like, oh, we're having a wedding. So she sends her nurses out to get a cake and they decorate the room. And I'm wearing scrubs and the needle that
Just handing out back.
So the needle that had been in this vein had missed. And so my hand was swollen up like a balloon. So I couldn't put the ring on this hand. And so I had to do it on this one. So we got married in the hospital. We filmed it. And I eventually got home Thursday. And we still did our wedding on Saturday, but I had to sit down a lot.
Wow.
So, but as to dying and what I might have...
Of yourself the entire time.
What's that?
Was your ass hanging out?
I hope so. No, they gave me something. They gave me something to put on. I forget exactly some of the details, but yeah. So in terms of what I might have seen, I don't really discuss any of that. I just kind of tell people that I am actively LDS still. So you can read into that what
So
you want.
you did have an experience, but you just don't share it like with the public, obviously. Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah.
Awesome.
So
That's too bad. That's the meat and potatoes part
That's
of
the
it,
best
but
part, yeah.
it's obviously probably like super personal to you. So I understand that as well.
yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things I could tell you around it, but it's sort of, You'll find out when you die. But I will say,
That's like not wanting to
dying,
spoil the movie that's going to be coming out in like 40 years or something.
yeah, I don't want to tell you the end.
You can still give us a trailer.
Well, I'll tell you, dying is very easy. There's just nothing to it. It's actually a little scary how easy it is to die. You know, because we mostly think about it being painful, like you're in a car accident, you're shot. With none of that, frankly, I mean, there's nothing to be afraid of. It's like, bing, that's it, done.
That sounds exactly like what President Nelson just recently said. I don't know if you saw that. He was kind of talking about his journal and his grandfather that came back. Was it?
No,
So it was either
one.
his great grandfather that came back to see his grandfather, I believe it was.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, have you heard that before? There's like a little church video on it. If you haven't seen it yet, just check it out on YouTube. But he's reading from his grandfather. So his father wrote this in his journal about his father, which was President Nelson's grandfather. So his dad died when he was like 17 or something. And then he's sitting in the room one day and his dad comes in and he's like, yeah, hi, what's going on? He's like, oh, I got some things to tell you. And then one of the things he asked him is it normal to die? And he said, it's just as normal to die as it is to be born.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, my dad passed 11 months later. And fortunately, he was able to go be at the temple for when Carly and I got sealed. And so that was cool. But I had a lot of experiences with my dad for maybe a year after he passed. And my older sister died a few months after my dad, and she had fallen away from the church. And I had some very interesting experiences with her. And one of my other sisters continues to have experiences with her. So
now when you say you continue to have experiences, is this where they're sitting in your room singing "I'm Henry VIII, I Am" all night?
Yeah, I don't want to get into a whole lot of details. It's kind of personal, but
love it. I think it's great.
That
beating on pots and pans and showing you the ghosts of Christmas past.
Oh my Lord.
Yeah, not quite like that, but yeah, one of the things I saw, I have to double check the date. Might have been 2 years ago, but it was the COVID lockdown, so that was interesting.
Give you a little heads up, a little prep time, huh?
I thought it was further away.
Yeah, well, I think we all are like, where are we, like this point in time that we're living? I mean, who would have thought a year ago? Seriously.
Okay, so I mean, you don't have to answer this or not, but if you've seen the COVID lockdown, have you seen anything where we're going from here on out?
I know. Where does 2021 have in store?
Are you like, well, I don't want to like spoil anything, but let's just put it this way: you're screwed.
Build an ark.
Well,
Okay, cool.
It was worse, not better. Let's say that.
So things get worse, not better.
Yeah, but the timeline is what's hard to put a finger on. Yeah, really weird.
So we have a question from the audience that I think is a good question. And somebody says, have you read any near-death experience accounts, either the books or just stuff that people have kind of written, and compared them to your own?
Yeah, actually, a friend of mine wrote a book on near-death experiences, and he interviewed many, many people. And it all, to some extent, it underscored one of the things that I felt from the whole experience, which is it is sort of individualistic and sort of oriented around your ability to accept and process what's happened and where you're at. And so that can change from person to person, depending on where you're at in the process. Like my uncle, who was just a incredible intellect, lifelong historian. And again, when you sort of get these personal revelations, it's not really for other people, but I didn't know he had died. He'd almost been dead so many times it wasn't even funny. And so I went to bed and I had this vivid dream of my uncle that he was dead and in heaven and basically running around going, I knew it. That's right. I knew that. Like, oh, that's how that works. And I woke up and whatever time it was, like 11:30 at night, and I found out that he had died just before that time. So So that was interesting.
Wow. Very
Interesting. Well, Shawn, as I kind of mentioned at the beginning, what we like to do is get into kind of one of the hot button topics of what's going on. And there's just so many of them in the LDS dating world. But the big one that I know you kind of deal with a lot in LDS dating happens to be the battle of the sexes. And we've talked a little bit about it tonight of people who just, it's kind of this bitter feud a little bit between the men and the women. And there's a lot of hurt. I get that. We've all been through our own personal experiences, good, bad, or ugly. And it's a matter of, you know, how do you really just get your bearings straight and not become toxic and move on to a healthy relationship? And I think a lot of people really struggle with that. So one of the things that I've noticed in the LDS dating Facebook group is that, you know, there tends to be flare-ups. So it'll kind of be quiet for a little bit, and then suddenly it'll be like, all right, somebody comes along and just drops some bomb, a post of something that's just like dripping with toxicity, and then everyone explodes. Whether it's like, I don't want to date somebody who's overweight, or I think short guys are not attractive, or whatever it might be. And then the ball just starts going back and forth, you know?
Yeah. And it's funny, like Randy Gilchrist, we'll talk because he posts something every day. And I let him kind of, he's very generous with his time. It's been very informative for him seeing people in the wild like this, because when he does counseling and therapy for couples, these are people who choose to come and get it. So that's a much different mindset than people that think they're fine and are lashing out at everybody around them. And so, yeah, it absolutely comes in waves, and we can't predict it. He'll post something and he'll comment to me and says, all right, let's get ready for the blow up, and nothing will happen. And there'll be something that we think is completely innocuous, and it just goes nuts. So there's the post of the Cosmo magazine covers with, and let's be clear, not somebody that's a little overweight, somebody who is morbidly obese on the Cosmo cover. This is not healthy. And the gal who posted it, you know, she's not a ballerina. She knows that, you know, however many pounds she's got to lose, she knows she does, and she's working on it. And she's posting it saying, this is not healthy. And she doesn't, and it's interesting because it was a woman that posted it, right? And women are attacking her. Probably had to kick out like 9 or 10 women on this post for just getting so vile and toxic. And it's fascinating what they will read into it. Like you said, blah, blah, blah. Nobody said anything like that. You decided to get offended, and you invented an entire series of words that do not exist in this post. It's a really weird pathology to, you know, follow. And it always happens. And those are the people, when you kick them out, that come to message you, well, why did you kick me out? And you know exactly which way it's going to go, you know, with 99% certitude. So,
I think those people who get on there, I mean, this is just me kind of speaking, but from what I've noticed, those people who get on there and they create these narratives that you're like, what? How did you get that from whatever I just said?
Yeah.
That is like almost 100% projection. You know, I had somebody who did this to me, and therefore all men do this, and therefore you're doing this. And so therefore whatever you just said must mean this. And you're like, somehow your rabbit hole just keeps spinning down, because that is not at all what we're talking about or what's gone on here. So
yeah, see, that's not a little overweight. That's not healthy.
Yeah, and I like how she ties in. It's like, it's not just about the weight, it's about diabetes, it's about the struggles that come with the added weight, and they're tagging it as healthy when it's not healthy, period, when it comes to health, right? We don't want to obviously belittle someone who weighs the same amount as they do or whatever, but it's just not healthy. It was tagged incorrectly. So that was her issue on that.
Yeah, and people will lose their minds over that conversation. And it's funny because you don't see body positive stuff for guys. Look at any men's magazine. You know, guys are going to Marvel superhero movies going, how the hell can I look like Hugh Jackman? You know, he's my age. Why can't I look like that? Because nobody's paying me to look like that, because he doesn't look like that normally. You know, it's a lot of damn work. You know, even for myself, I got to drop like 20 or so pounds right now. And, you know, we all have some weight issues, but it's funny because with women, it's weight, and they immediately go to the extreme. oh, well, all guys want Barbies. No, we don't. Yeah, there's a few, but it's just like, you know, Nick wants a Barbie.
I'll take a Barbie.
Yeah,
Nick wants a Hugh Jackman.
Yeah.
I just think like Dove products, they have a good line of products where they try to show the different body shapes and sizes, and that they should love who they are and love the skin they're in. I love that type of a message, because it's true. A lot of women have to look at other women, and they feel like they're being judged, like from the magazines, from the TV, from the movies. I mean, most women don't necessarily look like those people. So I've always liked that Dove has that concept to love the skin you're in, to paint, all of your different sizes. I think the issue with the Cosmo was that they used the term healthy. And so that's the two difference. I think you should always love who you are, where you're at, no matter where you're at. But that doesn't mean you tag yourself as healthy if you're obese.
Well, you don't celebrate morbid obesity. You don't mock the person. You be loving and supportive. And I think women have a much harder time with feeling like they're judged all the time. Everybody's judging me. No, guys looked at your butt and they looked at your boobs, and that was as far as it went. They didn't care what you were wearing. It's like nothing else. But guys like normal bodies. They don't like those anorexic twiggies that they turned into supermodels. Guys don't like that,
Some guys do.
No, the homosexuals do, because it looks like the homosexual pedophiles. It looks like a 12-year-old boy. So, I'm sorry. Was that too far? No,
I think that was right on the money.
Exactly.
We prefer to call them MAPS here, because that's the new SJW term for them.
Are you
Minor
serious?
attracted persons. You've never heard that? Yeah, it's the normalization of the pedophilia. They call them MAPS now.
They're trying to get in with the LGBTQ.
Oh
Sean, you're right there in ground zero for all the SJW craziness. Well, I mean, I kind of have two here in Portland. So, but you would think that you would have come across that term. Yeah, just Google MAPS at some point. Pedophilia and MAPS.
No, because then it'll be my browser history.
Well, yeah.
No, I don't need to know more. So anyway, it's, and I don't want to bag on the women. The guys have a real problem with fourth wave feminism, right? So what's happened for decades now on, there's that. All the sitcoms, dad is stupid. He's just one of the other kids. Mom has to take care of him. So they've denigrated and demeaned men to the point where men can't be men at all. It's toxic, right? It's a poison to be a normal man.
Toxic masculinity. Yeah. Apparently that's a thing nowadays.
It's a phrase. We do not teach in schools the way that boys learn. You want to teach boys physics? Put them out in a field with some explosives. They'll get real good at physics, but men in general learn by doing, and everything is catered to women. So you have a lot of men, you see any allegation of sexual impropriety completely made up, and their lives are over. They can be thrown in jail. They can lose their jobs. So guys are just saying, I'm out. I'm going to get my sex doll and my PS5, and I'm going to sit at home and MGTOW,
There was a post that came out a while back. I think it was in the Las Vegas Singles that I saw. And it talked about the idea of, I'm sorry, my audio has been in and out. How is it now? Are we okay?
Yeah,
You're fine.
Right now, you're good.
So there was a post that came out that said, if a man gets accused of sexual impropriety, rape, let's go ahead and just go straight to that. Man gets accused of rape. He gets convicted of rape. He then goes to spend anywhere from 15 to 20 years in prison for rape. Now, if she comes out later and she says, you know what, I made it up, he gets out of jail, and what happens to her?
Nothing.
Nothing.
Friend of mine from the LDS dating group was falsely accused like 5 years ago, spent 9 months in jail until she finally recanted. and they let him out, and she suffered no consequences whatsoever.
Is he going to
Bullshit.
sue her?
He tried to pursue something, and they told him, if you do that, we're going to put you back in jail.
Was this in California?
Utah.
Okay,
Wow.
so me being the only female up here, I've got to take a stand. So this is the thing. Those are very few situations. There are a
No.
lot. No, they're
They're
compared to
happening
how many
way
are
more.
legitimate. Absolutely.
Every guy I know has been falsely accused.
From what they say, right?
I've observed some of them.
My point is, being a female and having lived in this world where men feel they can do pretty much whatever they want to me or around me or say to me, it's a hard thing. It's a hard thing. I think that not every man is like that. And I think that if you're a good guy, you would assume that men wouldn't want to be like that. But it is something that has to be dealt with every single day for women. And so it's a touchy subject, and I don't like that it gets dismissed, because having been in a situation that was not, what's the word, that I didn't want to find myself in, and having things said that I was wanting things to happen that I didn't, it's hurtful. And I just really think this topic is very touchy. And I think that a lot of women, probably even in this group, have dealt with situations that we find ourselves the weaker sex, and it's a challenge. And I know that it does happen where women lie and accuse and things like that, but I think for the most part, that's not the case. I've had a lot of friends, I've had a lot of situations within my family, and it's legitimate. Now, I'm not getting into the whole toxic masculinity thing.
There's absolutely pigs, right? They exist.
There's a lot of pigs.
But your
There's a lot of
girlfriends are not going to tell you, oh, I falsely accused this guy.
I'm
Are
just
they?
letting you know. I'm
Yeah.
just telling you straight up. It's
No,
like,
but I'm telling you, you don't know, and you don't know any girls falsely accusing people, because they're not going to tell you that they're falsely accusing.
yeah, but you don't know if the guy had done it or not. You weren't there.
You know, the problem is that this
I have been there.
perpetuates. It perpetuates on both sides. So yes, there are guys that are total jerks, and it needs to be reported. And yes, there are women who use it as a tool to false report. And so how do you weed through that? Because it goes both ways. I mean, definitely every rape or sexual impropriety that is forced on a girl should be called out.
Prosecuted.
Absolutely 100%. But there also needs to be repercussions for girls who, I don't know if anybody in here has seen the movie Brian Banks or knows who he is. Perfect example. If you haven't seen it yet, go watch the movie. He was a rising football star, was going to be a huge NFL star, make all this money. Some girl just one day is like, yeah. I think he just ended up walking by her in the hallway, and she's like, oh, that guy raped me. And it became about money. And then, so they ended up suing the state of California, I believe it was. And they had $1 million. And then it finally came out. They did a private investigation. They had an undercover camera, and they're like, yeah, well, it's false, but I'm not going to recant, because then I'd have to pay back all that money that I got.
Yeah.
And it just got to be really, really disgusting. So those sort of things happen too. So definitely it's a crazy situation. That how do you find relief from both sides? Because guys feel hurt too. Who wants to go spend 10 years of your life in jail as a convicted rapist when you did nothing? And when you're in jail as a rapist,
That's bad. Yeah.
Yeah. You're the catcher, not the pitcher on that one.
Well, not only that, but there was actually a comment in the chat box that was saying that if we did fight to have an equal type of rights of, listen, if I didn't rape and she's claiming I did, and she comes out and she recants, then she has to go to jail for, X amount of time, something of that. What would be?
She has no incentive to recant.
Yeah, she has no incentive to recant. So as long as she knows she's okay, and she can come out and be like, I was just pissed that day, I was on my period, and this is the guy that I took it out on.
How do you make it so that it's safe for a woman to report? Because you definitely want to make sure that it's safe for them to report. Every time something like that happens, it should be reported. But how do you make it safe and easy to be reported while at the same time making it safe and easy for men to be protected against false reporting? I don't know. I don't really have an answer for that, but it is it is a problem.
So Nick, are you saying that if someone's on their period, they're going to accuse someone of raping them? Is that what you're saying?
He's saying if somebody's off, and I don't think that was a great metaphor, Nick, but
No, absolutely not.
I'll give you one quick example, because we can't solve this problem. So let's talk about things we can. I was working at a company back in '99 as a contractor, and I had like 25 contractors working for me. I was in the lunchroom eating my lunch, and one of the guys that worked for me, he's chit-chatting with one of the gals that was an employee, and he said, "Oh man, it's a beautiful day out. Do you want to go to lunch?" And she says, "No, thanks." And that was the end of it. Next thing I know, I got a call from HR. She claimed that he had sexually harassed her. And I only saved his position because I said, I was there. I would tell you exactly what happened, but there was no repercussions for her doing it. So that's one instance.
I was in school when they were training us that if you're standing across the way and you're looking at a girl for longer than 5 seconds, she can say that you are sexually harassing her.
Well, let's move on to something we can.
Let's. I think this kind of leads into a bigger problem with what's going on in not just the LDS dating culture, but in just our society in general. And it's the victimization at every turn over every slight offense or something that can be perceived as offensive. So we see this a lot in the LDS dating community. Somebody says something, somebody takes offense, somehow they pull out that platinum victim card and start using their spending spree like it's a shopping spree, and they're just swiping it left and right. I'm a victim. And it just becomes, it's a problem. It becomes toxic. And I've noticed girls that I'm like, I would maybe, this isn't kind of way in the past, but you see somebody that you might be interested in approaching and talking to, and then you see them pull out that victim card, whoosh, insta gone. Like I would not even give that the time of day. So, and are people sometimes victims? Yes, absolutely. That happens. Nobody's going to take that away from a true victim. But what's happened is, especially as you're talking about, like the white male patriarchy, cisgender, this, that, and the other, everybody's playing, intersectional politics. I want to say identity politics, that as well. The intersectionality game is how can I stack my victimhood and then basically create a situation where anything you do, if I don't like it, I'm a victim and you're in trouble. We're going to cancel you. This is becoming a huge, huge concern. It's almost to the point where at times you don't want to put yourself out there because you're like, well, what if somebody doesn't like it? What if somebody says like, gosh, whatever you said is just abuse, for example. That's a big one that I've.
That word abuse drives me nuts. So let me give a tip right here. And I don't see guys do this so much. So I'll address this to the ladies. Excuse me. Phone call.
A little Led Zeppelin there.
Exactly. That's my ringtone.
Yeah.
So like I was a single dad, right? I kept my kids in my divorce. I never introduced myself as, hi, I'm Shawn, I'm a single dad on my dating profiles or anything. I see so many women on dating profiles and LDS dating, they introduce themselves as though being a single mom is their identity. That is who they are. And they carry it like a cross. And it's just the weirdest thing. Hi, I'm Sally. I'm a single mom of 3 kids. And okay, yeah, that's kind of useful to know, but I'll see also, and I was abused. Everybody's been abused. Everybody's married to a narcissist. There aren't that many narcissists in the world for the number of people who've told me they were married to a narcissist. And not to be offensive, but some of the gals who say they were married to a narcissist, no, a narcissist would not marry somebody that looked like that because they are, it's a horrible thing to say, but they want to be an object of attention. So they're
it's
going
about
to
appearance.
Yeah. So odds are you weren't. We've all been in bad relationships. I told you my story. You guys shared some of that, similar story, right? I don't lead with that. When I was on dating sites, it's like, hey, I'm Shawn. I like to do these kinds of things. These are the kinds of, things I bring to the party. It was all about that. It wasn't. So don't vomit your toxic history at people as part of your introduction. Like, hi, I'm Shawn. I've died and my ex-wife was a drug addict, adulteress. That's not what you lead with. Although the dying twice is usually a conversation starter. But
it's funny that you should mention the narcissist topic, because this is one we just tried tackling before. And I don't think a lot of people really get it. This is one that just sticks in my craw because everybody labels everyone a narcissist. It's like, well, you did something I didn't like, narcissist sticker, you get one.
Yeah.
And it's just toxic, truly. I think, and I don't know if I've shared this, I'm pretty sure I've shared it in here before, but I saw one gal who said that her ex had cheated on her in a temple marriage. So therefore that must be a narcissist. Like, well, or it could go both ways. Maybe you were kind of withholding sex or something, and he's just like, I'm out of here. I'm not to say what he did was right, but there's a lot of different ways to slice that pie. It doesn't always just come down to narcissism.
Yeah, and let's throw out some quick tips while we're here. So, women are subtle, men are not. Women think that men want all this stuff from them, and what they want is somebody who is kind. If you are kind, that gets you 90% of it. That's most of what they care about. Not the Barbie, not anything else. So women, you're driving yourselves nuts for things you don't need to drive, but care about how you present. And the guy should also care about how he presents. Everybody should go and see a fashion consultant, find out what colors look good on you. Does this shirt look good on me? Does it make my eyes pop? Find out what haircut looks good on you, what beard looks good on you, what kind of makeup. People get in these ruts of doing a certain thing and they look like hell. It's like, go get some help. Take a little care for yourself to look proper. So women, when you think you're sending signals, men don't have the antenna to pick that up. They got no idea. I'll relate this story real briefly. I had these two female friends that were interested in the same guy. And the one was complaining to me about the other, about how she was flirting over the top and she couldn't believe she's doing it because she knew that, and we're talking about all people that are in their 40s, right? And because she knew that she liked him. And I'm like, you know what? I know her and I've never seen her flirt. I don't think she can. Oh no, she does it all the time. So about a year later, I became friends with that guy. And I said, so did anything happen with you or this other guy? He's like, no, none of them were interested in me. So they thought that they were over the top flirting with this guy, and he's doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo. So guys can sure as hell be a lot more aware. And I told Carly when we first started talking, I said, I am clueless if somebody's flirting with me. And she said something cute, and I said, LOL, and she said, that's me flirting in case you weren't sure. And I wasn't sure, and I said, thank you, that was helpful. Because I never wanted to assume I have 5 sisters, so I'm overly concerned about taking any cue and running with it and being overboard with a woman. So I would assume they all just wanted to be friends with me, and that's why they were squeezing my biceps and things like that. So I was utterly clueless.
So you say squeezing your bicep, but we're talking about like going, should kind of.
Yeah, no, the guns, took the guns out. But I found out that's what women do. They come up and they go, oh, hi, and they do the squeeze. I didn't know that they were flirting. All these things I didn't know women were doing were flirting. And I'm thinking I'm being, oh yeah, I scored this girl. I got her to go out with me. Turned out 8 of the women there were flirting with me. And I'm sitting here going, gosh, I wish I could find somebody because I'm a freaking idiot. And I couldn't figure out that women were interested in me. So yes, guys can learn how to fine tune their receivers a bit and understand when women are flirting, and they can do a much better job in communication. We can all do a better job communicating. And this is why Carly and I get along so well, because we actually discuss it. So if I say something, and we keep an eternal perspective. So we are married in the temple for time and all eternity. And she knows if I say something callous, because clearly you've spent a little time with me, it's easy for me to say something by accident that might come across as hurtful, even though there's no intent to be hurtful. And she knows I'm not intending to be hurtful, but it still will hurt. And so she will say, you know, what you said there, you know, I know you weren't trying to be hurtful, but it did hurt my feelings. And that gives me an opportunity to go, okay, I see how that worked. You know, I will take note of that and I will do better. And because we're able to have this conversation, she's able to explain her needs when she has them. Like, I need a hug right now. Great. You know, it's super helpful. And I think and I still will hold back. I don't want to feel like I'm weak or, you know, break down or anything in front of her. You know, when my dad died, it was a very difficult time for me. And she said, I don't know what you will need. So you just tell me what you need. And, you know, and I took some advantage of that, but not enough, because I didn't want to, again, look weak. And a lot of guys are like this. So there might be a day I feel like I need a hug and I'm like, oh no, I might look weak. So, yeah, you know, what am I thinking? You know, I can do that. With my ex-wife, she would have mocked me or something because she'd do that kind of thing. And so guys get trained into this behavior. So it's a little tip for everybody. Learn to just communicate clearly. And on the other side, don't bring that up to put somebody down. Let it be a safe conversation. So later it's like, well, you remember when you did that, you know.
See, but here's the problem with what you're saying, Shawn, is that you're assuming that a lot of people have the tools or the mental capacity to recognize that they need to communicate clearly. One of the biggest things that I've noticed on the Facebook groups is that people, and I've often wondered, like, how is it that you possibly procreated? You clearly don't know how to communicate with the opposite sex, but yet somehow here you are with a couple of kids, divorced, and now you're jumping back in and it's like you just realized that there are two genders and you're of the opposite one. And you don't know how to communicate at all with the other side of the aisle. And it's just, I don't know if it's like that kind of, they just fell out of a kind of a rut that they were in their marriage. And they're like, I haven't done this in so long. Okay, but you still talk to your ex. And so you still have that experience. But instead, what ends up coming out oftentimes is just this, bleh, this is like my hurt and my pain, and this is me. And I'm just going to put it out there. And somehow that's going to attract, because we all have that magnetic personality, right? It's not like nobody has a magnetic personality except a few people. Everybody attracts something. If you're throwing out garbage, you're going to attract more garbage. So they throw out this toxic bleh and they expect to attract something beautiful to fix that garbage. And nobody wants to come along and be a fixer. And so while it's great to say, if you guys just learn to communicate, then life's going to be so much better. But these guys don't have the tools. It's like the tools are just, I don't know if they just sold that off and lost it in the divorce. You know, they took the whole shed with all the tools in it, but I don't know how to communicate with the opposite sex anymore. So how do we get to the point where people can actually learn to communicate?
Well, that's kind of the tough love that we do, right? Like, I just don't put up with fools. And if you say stupid things, if you try to play the victim card, I will call you out on it when I see it. And we have a lot of people who've learned this over the years in the group that also do it. We've also had a lot of marriages. I'm seeing one or two questions in here that I think we should address. Do you want to read this one about I don't wear motherhood as a badge, or I can wear it? Read it.
I don't see that one on there. Is it?
Yeah, I can't see it.
Is that one directed specifically to you or to the whole group?
It was to everyone. So it says, I don't wear my motherhood as a badge. I wear it as a shield.
Oh, here we go.
They are my life, and men see single moms as toys and not someone they'd want a serious relationship with. See, now that's a toxic generalization. So putting your kids first is not putting them first, because kids deserve to have, a balanced home. And I will say, as a single dad that was raising a daughter, it's difficult. My daughter, unfortunately, has a lot of men tendencies in terms of communication because of me. There wasn't a female influence to sort of fine tune her, and no, don't eat like that. But on the other hand, I see single moms with sons that are completely ill prepared to deal with the very strong, firm walls and lines you have to put up for boys growing up. Boys will batter at that wall until you give in and they get what they want, and then you end up in a very unhealthy situation. Your sons don't learn boundaries because boys need the boundaries. We will do crazy things unless there's somebody that helps do that. So she's saying she's wearing her motherhood as a shield. Men don't see single moms as toys. I don't know any man like that. And I know a lot of them. I didn't see a single mom as a toy. You know, I wanted to have a relationship with her, and I did. Nick had a relationship with a single mom, you know, and married her. So a lot of us have done it. So that's a toxic generalization. And when people throw those things out, you know, you're going to get people jump all over you. It's because it enforces a really negative stereotype, especially when you say all. Stop generalizing. And if you treat them like the enemy instead of trying to understand so you can communicate, but yes, you have to learn how to communicate. See, now she's getting defensive because of what I said. Dating causes drama. I'm perfectly capable of raising my own son. I guarantee she's not a dad raising a son. A good dad, not a bad dad.
Well, I can say this, just speaking for myself, I don't look at single moms as a toy or something to play with and then discard. And I mean, I'm with you in the sense that I don't know any other guy that does. I'm sure they're out there, but there's somebody of every type out there. So
exactly.
The fuck boys. They're the guys that are not looking for a relationship currently. They are the guys that it doesn't matter that you're a single mom. It doesn't matter that you have kids. You're a female, and you're someone that they are finding attractive, and at that moment they are focused on you. And then when you move out of the room, they're focused on somebody else. Those are the guys that are not interested in a relationship. It has nothing to do with the fact that you're a mom.
Oh, and you know, this is a great point. So this was interesting for me because when I was single, before I got married, I was not active in the church. I was not a particularly good boy. I played in a rock band. I played a lot of bars and clubs. There was a lot of access. So
access to bars and clubs?
Nubile young ladies. So, you know, and I took advantage of that. And when I was single again, it's a completely different mindset when you are looking to date to marry than you are looking to date to hook up. Because if you're looking to date to hook up, you're just looking for who the most attractive girl for your taste is in that environment every single time. Doesn't matter where or what is going on. You went to the gym, that one. You went to the grocery store, that one. There's always somebody, and they may not be attractive per your standards in that group, but it's the best looking one in that group. And men do this almost all the time. But when you are looking to date to marry and not try to bed them, you have a completely different mindset on how you approach it.
Okay, so being a single mom, and being on this panel right now, of course, I'm gonna have to stand up for all the single moms. Okay, so this is the truth. It is hard sometimes to find a guy that's gonna take on kids. And it's because it's a challenge. They're not the individual's kids, right? They're not his kids. And I think there is truth to the fact that people can look down on people with kids. Like they're just like, it's just too much to take on. And
that's legitimate though.
Who was saying, okay, so it was Rachel that was saying all those things.
Yeah.
So I can see where she's coming from. Like it's difficult. And like for me personally, I have 2 kids on the spectrum. And so, and they're a challenge. They're a challenge for me. They're a challenge for their father. So to ask someone to take that on in a new life and a new relationship, I mean, that's a lot to ask of somebody. And there are people that aren't interested in stuff like that. It's a lot to ask. And so as a single mom, you do have to kind of put your kids first. Of course you do. You have to. You can't just go out and just find who works for you. You have to be able to go out and find a person that you can hopefully marry that's going to work for you and your children. And you have to keep them in mind. If you don't, then it's going to just be a fiasco. And I do believe that dating can cause drama. in a single mom's life, because the children a lot of times are still connected with their father, and they're still in their own way wanting their parents to come back together. And when you bring other people into the mix, it causes a lot of issues for the kids. And it's a very touchy subject, and it has to be balanced, and it has to be really thought through. It's not something you just go out willy-nilly and do. And so I feel like, I don't know if you're meaning to, but I feel like you're being really unfair to Rachel right now.
What she did is a stereotypical comment that I'll say, but also all these comments presuppose that there's no such thing as a single dad, that a dad's not dealing with his
She
kids.
wasn't talking about being a single dad. She was talking about being a single mom.
No, but you act like single dads don't exist.
Sure they do. Of course they do. But
And
she's not
we
talking
don't,
about single dad.
we
She's
don't-
talking about single moms.
we don't struggle, we don't have to deal with the same thing. So she's throwing this out here. Damn it, stop beeping. She's throwing it out there, and she made absolute statements about, dating's only drama, dating's this, men are this, men don't want this, all men are just, single moms are playthings.
Right. But having a psychology background, wouldn't you want at that moment to be like, validate what she's saying? I hear what you're saying. Maybe it's not an absolute, but I can hear what you're saying and why you're saying it. I understand you've had bad experiences. I understand that you feel like men don't want you because you have children. Like, don't you think it's important to validate?
She said though. She didn't say that men
but-
don't want her because she has children.
But I'm pretty sure you knew what she meant to say. Like,
No.
I know
How about this? How about we, because I'm a little bit in the middle here, like with Rachel saying that she uses her kids as a shield. I mean, the first thing that came to my mind as a guy, and we don't really, catch all these clues like Shawn was saying, that you put your kids out there as a shield, and if a guy sees the kids, then they're like,
run
oh
away.
gosh, like it kind of wards them off, all the players off. I mean, maybe that's the best way to say it. That's how I understood it, so I could be wrong, but I don't know if Rachel would be interested in
saying
maybe.
yes.
Okay, so I don't know if she would be interested in maybe coming on for a second and discussing this
Rachel?
or not. So that's kind of how I took it. And I do think that sometimes women will put their kids out there and be like, hey, if you're a player, I'm a mom, not interested in that. And I don't necessarily see a problem with that. I just don't think, and I see what Shawn's saying too. I don't think guys look at that and like, oh, you've got a kid, so that means I'm just going to have fun here and then move on.
It's the second half of,
but there are some.
it's the second half of her statement. The single men see single moms as toys and not someone they'd want a serious relationship with. I'm addressing the entirety of what she said. That qualifier at the end, now whatever it just described, using them as a shield to ward off players, that's a perfectly valid thing. I got out of things by telling people I was a Mormon, and it's like, oh, I don't want to date a Mormon guy. They weren't members, so that's valid. The rest of the
I went ahead and I unmuted Rachel. Rachel, are you with us?
Yeah, I'm here. What I was going off of was that he had mentioned that single women use motherhood as a badge. And if he's stereotypically us single women, what is he saying when he's saying that all single women who are saying, hey, yeah, I'm a single mother of 6. I'm not saying that to wear it as a badge. Oh, look at me, I gave birth to 6 children. No, what I am saying is I have 6 children to protect. I'm not out here to date so I can fool around.
This is fascinating because it's a great example of what I described of people hearing things that you didn't say. So I didn't generalize. I said, I see women do this on dating sites where they use it's their identity. I'm Sally, I'm a single mom. It's part of their identity. I said, I see single women do this. I didn't say all women do this, and I didn't describe it the way she did, but she decided to turn that.
But I also didn't say all men look at single moms as toys.
Let's read it. Men see single moms as toys. Men, not some men.
Okay.
Right?
But
I said some women.
Okay,
I think this
so
is all about delivery. I think that personally, I just think that there's a lack of validation to an extent. And I think that maybe it was just a little rough around the edges. And with Rachel, it was stated as an absolute, but I think most of us realize that it's not an absolute. Like we know not all men are like that, but
So
it seems as if she's had experiences that has brought her to a place where she feels like the men that she interacts with, they're just players.
But do
And
you see
they're,
here's the problem with speaking in absolutes like that. People read that. And so I read that. Most guys will read stuff like that. And, you know, other way as well, you know, when a guy says, you know, why do all LDS women only want returned missionaries? You know, I see guys say that. It's not a true statement. Not all LDS women care about that. So I will slag them for making these absolute statements. So if you come out, if you do not mean all, don't say all. I've run into a lot of men. And remember, I started this off by saying I'm, you know, this tough love kind of a guy. I don't mince words around. She's not on my couch where I'm going to go through a validation process. You know, I don't have a couch. I'm not licensed. Where I'm going to do that. I just don't talk like that. But you said men. You didn't say some men. And this is the problem. Now we get the digging in. This is one of my rules in my group. Don't dig in. And then she'll say, but you're digging in. Now she's hitting backspace. So this is what you see a lot. And
so because she didn't say some men, that's the reason why you took that as men meaning more than one, and you're not stopping at any certain number of men. So obviously you're implying to all men. Is that my understanding?
Just as you're saying, she didn't say some men, she's saying I didn't say all men, right? So
Right.
I guess what I'm just trying to get at is I think that it's, yes, the communication, I think on both sides was just not delivered correctly. I think I knew, like when you were talking about, you know, the little, how you write about yourself at the beginning of your little, I can't even think of the word, like on Mutual or something, your bio. I had to stop and think, okay, I know he's not really talking about me because I don't do that. But that I was feeling like you were saying all women, that's what all single mothers do. But I took a step back, was like, well, obviously I don't do that. So, I mean, he's not really talking about me. So
in my head, I heard the same thing. I actually
Nick was doing the same
women.
thing. But so, and I think the same thing is with Rachel, is that she wasn't meaning all men. She knows not all men. So she said men. So I don't know. I just think this
is a great object lesson though for precision in language.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Absolutely.
Right now, what you're getting is what we call white knights going on. And that's great. You know, maybe they'll get a date out of it. But if you're going to talk about a group, don't insinuate it's everybody, because it's annoying to the people reading it. Now, I'm used to having to, you know, I notice these behavior patterns in language. And because I touched on single moms, you're a single mom, you immediately went into defensive mode. And
I chose not to. No, I thought, is he talking
about it though, right?
What?
You felt it, that initially kicked up in you.
No, I initially thought, is he talking about all women? I thought, because of the way you were delivering it, it sounded like you were saying all single women tag themselves as I'm a single woman. I'm a single mother.
I clearly did not say all single women. Okay. I was very specific.
I was saying that's how I understood it.
Right, because you're a single mom. So this
goes back to the point where people kind of hear what they want to hear, you know?
Yes.
And when you're talking about projection and the past, the hurts you felt, or what you consider you, this is exactly what we're talking about when we talk about the battle of the sexes. People get in there on the groups, there's a conversation going, and suddenly, somehow it's interpreted as you're specifically speaking about me and my situation. When maybe they are, maybe they aren't. I mean, I would assume 99% of the time they are not. Maybe if they're in a confrontation and going back and forth with somebody, then they're, you know, specifically speaking about that person. But people will take the slightest minutia of detail and they'll internalize that as this is about me. when it really isn't necessarily about them. But this is where, especially I believe in the LDS culture, there's a huge chasm between the guys and the girls, because I feel like the guys have their own kind of language that they speak, and the girls their own language that they speak. It's the difference between priesthood and relief society. And somehow those rooms, the doors aren't open and they're not like chatting back and forth. They're just suddenly like throwing little paper airplanes, hoping it gets into the other room, and they pick it up and read the signals. And that's not happening. That is where the problems come. And that's where people get on there and these fights happen, and then people get kicked out. So my question to you is, when you've been in as a moderator of a large group, and I'm sure you've seen this probably 1,000 times if you've seen it once, in your opinion, do you see this happening more from the girl side of the aisle or the girl side of the aisle? I have a feeling I already know the answer, but I just want to hear you. I want your opinion on that.
Women take offense faster than guys, typically, because they are more detail oriented than guys. Guys aren't reading into it. There's all these memes about, the couple laying in bed. I bet he's thinking about that waitress and he's going, man, I wonder what would happen if you put a CD in a microwave.
It's true.
And that's pretty much it. Like, my wife and I are sitting up in bed and I'm watching a video on how to build supercapacitors out of graphene, or something ridiculous. So, of course, she finds it interesting too. And it comes down to the fundamental difference between men and women. Women are process oriented and men tend to be outcome oriented in general. There's exceptions to everything. And
if you're a man that's process oriented, then
you're a woman. Yeah.
You're
Got
a woman, Nick.
got it.
You're just not oriented at all, Nick. So
Now
you're on the spectrum somewhere.
Yeah.
Bam.
So they will approach communication differently. Women tend to be more passive aggressive. Women will come to each other's defense faster than men will. Women will take women can red flag men, and the word will spread, and every woman will go, oh no, I heard he's terrible, I won't see him. Whereas on the other hand, a guy, and I've specifically had this experience because I knew some women, some guy friends of mine wanted to go out with, and I said, don't do it, man, you're just in for heartbreak. Yeah, but she's hot. I'm like, seriously, man, I'm just telling you, I know this gal, don't do it. No, I'm doing it. Guys will not listen. So guys don't take advice to the extreme, and women take the advice to the extreme, without going and getting the information for themselves. So it's
what are they thinking with? That's the problem. See, women, I would say, are probably always thinking up here, even when probably they don't need to be. And then guys, we're thinking here, we're thinking down here, and it's one or the other. So you get a guy that's like, yeah, I wouldn't go out with her. And he's all like, yeah, but I'm ready.
Women think more long-term as well. Just simple things. Like if they go to a parking lot to park at night, they're looking, okay, is that a lighted spot? Is it a clear line from the door? Am I parking next to a giant panel van? They're looking at that stuff, and the guys, nope, they don't care. So they operate, and I'm going to get all sorts of crap, I'm sure, but they essentially operate from a position of fear, for lack of a better word. They want to provide, they want to care for. Can I do that? Will I be safe? They go on a date and it's some big guy, and it will go through their heads, what if he tries to do something I don't want? Will I be able to handle that? So, again, this is a generalization, but this is also in psychology. That's kind of fundamental difference between men and women. They're thinking through a lot of the repercussions of action. So it's like, okay, if I say yes to this guy for a date, am I going to let him kiss me? We haven't even gotten to the date and how it went. Maybe you do give a kiss on the first date, or they've got this rule, I never kiss on the first date. It's not till the 7th date. And so, doesn't matter what goes on, they will wait till that 7th date. Whereas the guy's like, all right, let's see what's going to happen. Are we getting along? Yeah, maybe let's move in.
We wing it.
Yes,
we wing it.
So women tend to plan more and men tend to wing it more.
Yeah.
And that's why, communication is so helpful. But another thing is to accept what the other person tells you. My ex-wife would do this all the time. You guys are probably familiar with this. She would tell me what I meant. by something. It's like, no, I said, hey, what are we doing for dinner tonight? Oh, so you're saying I'm not a good cook? No, I'm asking if you want to go to dinner tonight. Like, this is a real conversation I've had. And this is the ex-wife, not the wife 2.0. So if a guy says, no, that's not what I was thinking, accept it, because he's likely telling you the truth. Guys are a dish of brownies and women are a tiramisu, right? So there's layers and there's one layer. We aren't doing all that. And my wife
Guys are more of a hollow onion. Girls have way more layers.
Yeah, we're like a scallion.
Yeah.
My wife will go, watch, I'm going to do passive aggressive now. Oh, that's so great. I mean, we joke about it. And she's like, oh, I can turn it on when I need to.
So one of the things I've noticed in your group is it seems to be, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but from everything you've said and kind of from some of the videos I've seen and things like that, it looks like more of the women get kind of booted out than the guys. Is that kind of normally your experience? I'm sure there's guys who, and I've seen them on there before. There's some crazy stuff that comes through there. I really liked the guy most recently. It was maybe a month or two ago that was like, basically like Porter Rockwell, and he was strong and he was going to like, beat the devil out of people. You know who I'm talking about.
I heard about this.
Oh, yeah.
That guy's my fave. I don't know. I just need to like hang out with that guy for a day just to see the craziness in action. But I kind of see, it seems like more often than not, it's the girls that get upset and then get booted. And so at some point I'm thinking this group's going to turn into a giant sausage fest if this keeps continuing. Do you know what I mean?
It's still 2/3 women to 1/3 men, something like that.
Okay, so all the guys out there in the
shoot the
audience,
hostage.
you just heard that 2/3 girls to 1/3 guys. So if you're looking for odds, go to that group.
Yeah, well, what's interesting, and this goes to, I have a term for it, but I won't share it here. This goes to the fact that
come on.
Well, I call it the estrogen wall. So women will jump to the defense of another woman, like it could be a 200 comment thread, right? And they see one guy say something that looks mean in isolation at this one point, and they didn't read the other 30 comments before that where she's just been nasty as hell. And he finally lashed back, and boom, the women will jump to her defense immediately, and they go all in. Women will get much nastier faster. The guys don't tend to, but when the guys go south, they go south hard. Like, they're sending me physical threats, and I always give them my address. I'm like, here's my address. Come on by. We'll take care of it. Oh, I'm going to let your bishop know. Here's my bishop's phone number. Go ahead and call him. I had somebody actually call him. My bishop called me. He's like, what the hell was that? I said, sorry, I won't do that anymore. But yeah, the guys will just dig in. They'll start messaging me after I've kicked them out, and they just go and go and go. Whereas the girls usually like to leave some long diatribe to get the last word and then block me so you can't reply. It's just kind of pathetic. But yeah, probably it comes in fits and starts. And as you notice, it usually they get kicked out in groups. So anybody who leaves a farewell message but then doesn't leave.
Oh, I love those.
Yeah, I kick them out and delete the message at the same time. But yeah, the guys who overly white knight, and I try to point out the white knighting to guys. It's like you're virtue signaling, you're white knighting. You say, what's your favorite book? Oh, well, after the Book of Mormon and the Bible, it's probably Shakespeare.
Or like how to treat your wife like she's a princess and how you will fawn all over her. Like,
yeah.
Gag. Okay, stop, dude. We get the pandering. Stop.
Yeah. So the white knights, and we have the men's group. I don't know if either of you are in that one, the LDS dating men's boot camp, where, we talk about these things. Guys will come and say, hey, I saw this, what do you guys think? Is this somebody who's crazy, or, how do you think I should respond? And we try to be support. And there's a women's boot camp group as well. And we try to be supportive. But what's interesting, when we came on the idea to do the women and the men's boot camp group, my wife handled the women's and I handled the men's. The women's within an hour was all complaining about guys, specific guys. Oh, she had to turn it off, so she had to moderate every post. And the guys never did that. It was really interesting to see.
Yeah, the guys didn't complain about the other guys.
No, they didn't complain about the women. But it was weird because when it's just a women's group, they just like unload it. And she's like, what the hell is wrong with these women? She had like, I don't know, 200 women in there just losing their cookies, just ranting about everything you could possibly imagine. And she's like, oh, this is insane.
Misery loves company.
I suppose so. So that's a tip. Don't vomit your baggage at people. You know, I see this, there'll be a post, Randy will post something like, what temple is your favorite? And somebody will go, well, I used to like the temple until my spouse cheated on me and the bishop wouldn't, excommunicate him. It's like, holy crap, why are you giving your life story? It's completely irrelevant.
Yeah.
So
Well,
oh, sorry, there's a weird, that, I don't know with the microphones, but so
That's not me.
so do you think, Shawn, do you think that maybe your view would be that women are more emotional and men are just more logical? Is that what you're trying to get at in general? Because it seems like, everything that you comment about women is more on the emotion. And then the guy are more like, I don't really think much on it. I'm just going to go with my first thought. And that's just what it is, like more of just a logical thought and not get mixed up with the emotion.
That is generally true. And I mean, as a software developer, I've only run into a handful, and by handful, I mean in single digits, of like exceptional women programmers. And it's not that the women are stupid. What I found that they were very good at was like business intelligence, data analytics, because that's a lot of what if questions. And, men tended to be better at programming. And they keep trying to get more women in programming, but the women generally aren't interested in the programming, but they are very good as analysts and doing data analytics, I found, and quality control.
That's interesting because you would think there'd be a lot more women involved when programming is a lot of if-then statements,
But yeah, I mean, just as a general rule of thumb, women tend to be emotionally driven and men are logical. It's not that one is better than the other. And that's an unfortunate fallout of feminism, fourth wave feminism especially, is they have taken what is all inherently good and praiseworthy about women, and they've devalued it. And they've said women are only good if they can do what men do, as though the only thing that's worthy of attainment is what men do, as opposed to making what women do desirous and worthy of attainment. And it totally does a disservice to women because all they're trying to do is be men, and then they're not comfortable and they're not happy because we've made being a woman be a bad thing. Women need to be men and men need to be nothing.
Okay.
I keep waiting for Celeste. Okay. Everyone's talking about the skills all of a sudden in there.
And I don't know. I guess for me, I'm an emotional person. I mean, I think everyone is, but I'm also very logically based. It's just kind of how I'm wired. And so I think that
so is my wife. I mean, it's not 100% truism, right? But
yeah, I don't know. I guess it seems like, and I don't know you. I mean, this is the first time we've met, but I just kind of feel that maybe since you do have, the psychology background, that you would possibly be a little more willing to share things in there is a lot of women that are emotional, but we've got the ones that aren't as much as well, and kind of balance that. I don't know. It seems to me, and again, I don't know you, but you seem very one-sided on things like this. So are you normally, or is it just because we brought up this topic of battle of the sexes?
Oh, I'm very open about it.
Are you a woman hater? Come out, Shawn. Are you?
Well, he likes the logical women, I think. I'm just not sure.
I loves me some women. Keep in mind, I grew up with my mom and 5 sisters. I have a daughter. I've got my second wife. I understand women pretty well, but also I can't control how you decide to perceive how I say something. If I don't have an intent to hurt you, and you choose to be hurt or offended, I can't control that. Could I say things differently? Yeah, I could, but then maybe that bothers somebody else. Maybe it hurts me because I can't be authentically me. Everybody else wants to be authentically them, and they want me to adjust who I am to accommodate who they are. Why don't they adjust who they are to accommodate who I am? Do you see? This happens all the time. I'm just saying, think of the perspective that you're asking for. You know,
This kind of brings up an interesting point too, because what ends up happening on the dating groups, I see all the time, ad nauseum, and it just drives me crazy, is everybody, and this goes back to your white knight, everybody is trying to be somebody that they're not. Instead of just being genuinely you, people aren't going to necessarily like it. Some people will like it, some won't. But you know what? You're going to attract the person that's right for you. You don't have to be fake. You don't have to put on some sort of facade. And then after you're in a relationship, or heaven forbid, after you're now married, then that facade comes off, and then the real you comes out, and then they hate you.
This is actually what's useful about the group and these conversations is you see how people are, because they're not on a date and they're not being careful and they're being a keyboard warrior. And it's like, that's kind of their true nature in terms of how they communicate. And
I haven't posted a lot in your group. I don't even know if I have, but in some of the other groups, I do like to kind of bring up controversial subjects and kind of throw them out there, because I agree with you. I think it's interesting to see how people interact and the things that they say on these sites. And I think it shows a good example of who they are. You can see if they're going to have a temper, if they're going to freak out, if they're going to be offended, you know, whatever the case may be. Like, you can see it firsthand there. And so I think there's a huge value in seeing those type of interactions, because you can see who the person is more so than just on like a dating profile.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that was kind of the whole purpose of starting this podcast, is to just get people out of the toxic Facebook groups where they're posting little quips here and there, and you never really get to know them. And you bring them on here and you can see, okay, first of all, do they look anything like their profile picture? Second of all,
Catfish.
what are they really like?
Nick's a catfish. We know that.
Yeah, Nick's a catfish. Did we just lose
You see, you pissed him off. He left. Didn't even say goodbye.
No, he probably just got disconnected. I don't think he's the type.
Did he get disconnected?
Oh, his screen froze, Shasta?
Yeah, I'm sure he'll come back.
Yeah, so everybody that's in the audience, you guys have been great tonight. Please keep it up. I have kicked out a couple people because they did not change their names. And so as long as we can keep up that mentality, that's awesome.
Here he comes back.
Oh, good. Good.
And I've been trying to get all y'all's questions that are you're privately like throwing at me. I'm trying to get them in there, or comments.
Yeah, right.
I'm coming. I know I'm the only female up here. Oh, is he not here?
Yeah, hold on.
Okay, I'm like, I hit
We have to allow, hold on a second. Start video, unmute.
Yeah, if you've got a nickname Galaxy, you're out of here.
Freaking A, dude.
Oh,
there we go.
There we go.
You there?
damn kids on the Netflix.
Oh.
Says your bandwidth is low.
No, I got a ton of bandwidth. I don't know what's going on. I need to get a new router, actually. But
You got to go for the Wi-Fi mesh. Don't just get a router.
oh, I've got a hardcore system. It's just old. I think it's wearing out. I have to just power cycle it periodically.
Yeah.
Anywho.
So this is a conversation that happened yesterday. It's got like so much attention.
Yeah.
And because we were doing the Battle of the Sexes, I thought I'd bring it up. I'll go ahead and I'll unload it for you. I know you got reading glasses on, but help you out some.
There are my old eyes.
Hey, be
Right.
nice to those old people.
So this is a guy that does not have his face in a picture, which I find I'm not a big fan of.
Yeah.
Hey, this is the guy that looks like Billy Mays from OxyClean.
Yay, there you go.
Yeah.
Billy Mays here.
So
R.I.P. Billy May.
this is my problem with this. Okay, now I'm okay with the post. The post itself is great. Okay, women look a guy dead in the eyes and say, "I am not ready to date," and then you turn around and they're dating somebody else. Great post. I think it definitely opened up a lot of attention. The concern that I had is as I was going through, and he'd say, everybody's telling him, "Hey, it's they're just trying to be nice." Okay. And as you know, oh well, men, no, okay.
I think he's being sarcastic there,
He
though.
was being sarcastic there. But as he goes through and he starts
Jeez.
he starts going through and he's telling everybody the serious portion of what he's saying. So as far as I'm concerned, he's being serious about his whole thing. And then he gets down here and he starts making jokes about what he's doing. So it's like I don't know where you're coming from. So how do you view somebody that's stirring the pot like this?
Well, there's people stirring the pot, and we had a guy in the group. I think I might have taken him out. He clearly had some serious issues, and I mean, I had talked to him. I knew he did, and he would ask these bizarro hypotheticals. Like he's not even dating. He's like, "What if I get married and it's in the temple, but then 2 years later I find out she doesn't like tacos?" And, like just weird stuff. And it got to the point where I had to shut him down. So if that guy's question's legit, and this is something I ran into with a lot of my friends, and I had a little trouble when I first started dating again, like taking that hint, is they go, "Why can't they just be honest?" Well, I had been unfamiliar with women asking me out when I was younger because I just didn't do that. But they were doing it now as an adult. I was ill prepared for how do you say no? Like, you're always on the hunt. You're not used to being hunted. And I didn't know how to say no. And I'd be like coming up with excuses instead of just saying, "Oh, no, thanks, I'm not interested." Because it's a hard thing. I don't want to be mean. And I know guys, well, I want her to tell me why, she broke up with me. I said, "Why? What does it matter?" Because all you're going to do is you're going to go, "Oh, I can change that. I can be different." No, don't do that. It's done. Just go. Or when you hear, "Oh, his loss or her loss," why is it anybody's loss? It wasn't a good match. You went out, they didn't like you. Do you want to try to force somebody to like you? I think people really need to get that balance down. But yeah, take the hint. They gave you a reason and they went and saw somebody else. So that meant I don't care. So that guy, whatever. If it's generating an interesting discussion and he's not like hardcore trolling, in the comments, which didn't look like he necessarily was, I'll let it go because it's a useful conversation to have. And you have to think too, when you're adminning these groups, is it isn't necessarily for the people that posted the original post or even the comments that are there. It can very well be for the people who are reading it later, because I've got 6,000 people in the group, and very, very small percentage are chiming in, but a lot of people are reading it. So you want to leave things, if you can, that'll be helpful for people that are reading it later, not necessarily for the people that are engaging with it right then.
Yeah, I think it's funny. I love the posts, and I see these from time to time. And I don't usually start my own posts. I mean, most people, if they even see me on there at all, I usually just kind of troll and pop in a little snarky comment here or there just to have fun. But one of the ones I see over and over is just what you have been describing. Somebody saying, "Gosh, it just didn't work out between us." And then everybody wants to jump in. And I know they're good intentions of making them feel better, but it's a complete lie of them saying their loss, gosh, they just didn't even know what a great person you are. And they're probably going to regret it. And you know what? They probably won't. It probably wasn't a good match. It doesn't mean that they're a bad person. It doesn't mean that they're going to be miserable and unhappy because they didn't choose you. Maybe it just wasn't a good match, and maybe they would be miserable and unhappy if they did choose you and tried to force a square peg into a round hole.
Yep.
I see that all the time, and everybody wants to get in and make everyone feel better, but really it's just a bunch of pandering nonsense of everybody trying to stroke an ego and trying to appear as virtuous. And gosh, oh, I'm sorry, ma'am, nobody deserves to treat a lady or a daughter of God like that. Like, oh my gosh, stop. I'm gonna
Virtue
gouge my eyes out
signaling,
for
yeah.
reading that crap.
I know we're long. Let me leave one thought along that line. And this is probably my biggest pet peeve. It might be slightly controversial, but what bothers me is when I see a lot of, oh, in God's time, I'm waiting for Heavenly Father to bring me my eternal companion. It's like, okay, let's stop a second. Let's think about this for a second. That means that you think you can pray away somebody else's agency and force God to bring them to you. No, you have to be actively engaged, not only in your own salvation, but in your life. So what was Lucifer's plan? Lucifer's plan was to stair-step you through your life. Our plan is the plan of salvation. You do not have a blueprinted plan for your life. There are a few people who are foreordained for certain things, the founding fathers of this country, Joseph Smith, but they could also have not done it. Let's look at Jonah for a minute. He said, no, I don't want to do that. God said, well, I really do want you to do that. So you can choose not to do it, but things are going to go south. But he had agency. Think about Joseph Smith. Think about the brother of Jared. They had to ask for everything. God got so annoyed at a man who was so faithful, he could command God to show his hand because he sat on that beach for 2 or 3 years, chewed him out for hours because he didn't sit down and ask what was next. Joseph Smith had to ask, he had to think of what was next, about the priesthood, about everything. So if those men had to ask, you need to ask. You need to pray with great specificity. You need to think very hard about what fits in your life and what kind of life you fit in. Somebody that has kids, somebody that wants kids, somebody that's childless and doesn't want any. These are all very important. Don't go dating women that got 3 and 5-year-old kids if you've got no intention of ever having 3 and 5-year-old kids. You do not ever want to have kids. Don't date women with kids then. So
I was just going to say, like, this is going to be a rarity at this point, but I totally agree with you, right? We're on the same page on this one. So I agree. Like, I think that a lot of people that I've noticed on the pages, they will be like, I'm just waiting. I'm waiting for the Lord to bring me who I'm supposed to be. Or
yeah,
they'll be like, I'm really not going to do much because the Lord's going to bring him to me or her to me. And I just think, no, like you said, like he's not going to force someone to come into your life. He's not going to do that. Because
that was Lucifer's plan.
Plus, right. And plus, I don't necessarily believe, unless there's probably some cases that this is the case, but I don't believe that there's just one person for me, right? Like, I think there's people that would work in my life. And then I have to go out, find who it is that I would like to put into my life. And it's all about agency, and it's all about the other person's agency or the other people's agency. And if we sit back and don't do anything and just wait for it to be hand delivered, we're going to be sitting there a long time, I think.
Right. So if you're praying, let me just make this quick point. If you're praying, and I aim this one to women because they don't like to ask men out, right? But my wife approached me. I wouldn't have approached her because I was dating somebody at the time. So we wouldn't have connected that night and probably wouldn't have run into each other again. So if you're praying fervently and very specifically, and you feel moved to go somewhere. So she had been doing that. I had been doing that. We both went to an event we wouldn't have normally gone to. And that was how we met. And so you feel compelled to go there. The Spirit is now leading you. You get there and suddenly your radar locks on somebody. It's like, you don't just then stand there and go, okay, God, bring them over here. You go. You were the one that was praying.
Right. I agree.
He got you there.
Yep.
Yeah, John, by the way, actually had a really good story about this. He talked about Shelley Dew, and Shelley Dew was a wonderful biographer for President Benson and for a few of the leaders of the church. And she made a comment saying, if all that was required for getting married was prayer and fasting, then I would have a line of Nephi's just lining up at my door. But it's without that action on our part of doing something that, it's not going to happen. So she went out and she actually started doing stuff. She didn't just sit around on a hope chest waiting for something to happen. So action faith without action doesn't work.
Oh, one
Right.
communication tip, quick, because Connie's asking a question here, but one communication tip for women, because this gal I was friends with, athletic, attractive, she was very friendly, and she's like, you know what? Nobody will ever ask me out. I said, tell me something that happens. She's like, oh, I'll be here, and a guy will say, let's hang out. Okay, it's a lame way to ask somebody out, but it's a tentative way. You don't want to get hurt saying, let's hang out. It doesn't put you out there as much as saying, would you like to go on a date? And I'll say, yeah, let's hang out. Okay, you rejected him. She's like, what? Well, you rejected him. You didn't say, yeah, let's hang out. I'm free this weekend. I'm free. I'm gone this weekend, but I'm free next week. So you have to give them something. Otherwise, it's just like they take that as a kind rejection to your half-ass asking them out.
Yeah.
Fact.
So I think we are going to go to Connie here. She says she wants to know more about the issue of women asking men out. How do men react? I would say this. I've been asked out, and I think most guys probably have. And if it's a girl that I'm not interested in whatsoever, I kind of look at them and I think, all right, well, at the very least, I feel flattered that they asked me out. And at the very most, I want to make sure that they feel comfortable, that if I'm not interested, that I do not tell them like, hey, I'm sorry, I am completely not interested in you because you look like the bad cover of a Cosmo magazine or something like that. I want to let them feel like they have just done something that is safe to do and they're okay to do it.
Yeah.
So I guess
That's good
that's
explanation.
kind of how I feel about that. I feel like girls should go for it.
All right. I think that women should ask guys out. I would also say that guys ask women out all the time, and we get rejected a lot. I would say that probably women don't ask out guys as much. And so when they get rejected, for them, it's a lot more personal. It's a lot more of a sting for them to take, unless they went on a mission and they were knocking on doors for so ever long. Maybe they'll be a little bit easier on the rejection. But I've had women ask me out that I'm just like, I don't have an interest. And yeah, I do take it as a flattery thing, and I think it's nice. But on the flip side, it's just like, I don't want you to get the impression that I do like.
Nope. Nick's
Well,
gone.
Now Nick needs a better Wi-Fi router.
Yeah, so it's interesting because when I was originally dating way back in the day, like before I was originally married, like girls didn't ask guys out. Like that was not a part of at least the culture that I was raised in the area I was raised. And so being plopped back down into this, 25-year later dating pool that's now have cell phones and the internet and everything that goes along with it. It is a random place to be for someone who's never experienced that. Now, my daughter, on the other hand, who's 20, she asks guys out all the time. It's part of their culture. It becomes the norm, but it's definitely tough for my age. I mean, it's a tough.
And what age bracket are you referring to?
I'm in the upper
30.
40s. Upper 40s.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I know. I'm just saying it's hard. So you guys, yeah, it's nice you guys try to make them feel good. If you don't want to, try to smooth the edges a little bit.
Well, I know how difficult it must be for girls because it's not the norm. As a guy, is it still difficult? You still sometimes think like, gosh, you get that little feeling, depends how many times you've done it. I'm pretty sure a lot of the guys on the LDS dating websites are fairly not very good at it. Maybe that's a good way to just put it, that they lack the communication skills to come out and say something. So when I see a girl doing that, I can only think, look, this has got to be somebody who probably hasn't done this a lot. It's not the norm. And so I'm never going to just throw it back in her face and be like, oh, gross. No way. Like that would be so brutal. And I think that's kind of what people sort of think, like, gosh, what if they reject me? I just can't handle that. Like, well, maybe you can. Maybe it's not as bad as you think. They're not going to sit there and like totally lambaste you.
If a guy did do that, I mean, that really speaks volumes about him. I mean,
Yeah.
unfortunately, if you are interested in a guy, you do ask him out, and he turns around and he's like, dude, I would never date a cow like you.
Well, you
You
just
don't want to
filtered it
date
out.
that guy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you just
I
saved the
agree.
evening.
I mean,
But
that's,
if it took all like your nerves to ask and then they shoot you down like that would be pretty hurtful. But I
oh,
agree. I mean, I think you've like, you just cut the loss. I'm like, you don't want to go out with someone like that anyway, right? So
Now, I have had it before where girls get really bitter because you shoot them down. So, for example, I had some girls who wanted to date me, and I was like, okay, well, we really don't have anything in common. First of all, they weren't active in the church. Second of all, it wasn't a match. And what ends up happening in that situation is your priesthood gets called into play. And they're like, well, you're not a worthy priesthood holder. You need to repent. Every guy needs to just love any daughter of God. I'm like, okay, look, that's not how this works. Heavenly Father's not just going to be like, oh, well, what's wrong? You rejected one of my daughters and you should totally fawn all over her because she's one of my daughters. Your priesthood is revoked, but that's kind of how they treat that. And I'm just like, look, you're not even active. And yet here you are totally like bringing down the hammer on me. So I feel like most of the time people are okay with it, but there are some of those that just get toxic. And so you can't reject them kindly. Or I shouldn't say you can't reject them kindly. They don't take rejection kindly. That's
okay. Well, I mean, I'm pretty sure that I can throw this one at Celeste's feet.
what are you
Celeste,
throwing
if you
at me?
reject a man, I mean, do they always take it good, or do they end up berating you for an hour?
Or two.
Celeste doesn't need to ask out guys. She needs to ward off guys. That's the problem.
I've had a few bitter people. Yeah. I've had some people that were
I
not
love the
happy
guy-
that I'm not interested.
I love the guys that just think that they can shame you into dating them.
I've got some of those too. But it's a good thing I'm pretty strong-willed. I'm not about to be shamed into anything. So
Good. Yeah, you should. I mean, there's just some real jackasses out there. When I was single, I knew more women than men. And like, do you know any good guys? I'm like, yeah, I know one guy that I would recommend because because I was in that weird cutoff. And so a lot of the guys I knew were in their later 50s. And a lot of them were just creepy as hell. I only like girls that are, in their early 30s. Well, they don't like you, so stop. Stop being gross.
the thing is that they come off all nice and sweet and cordial and friendly at first, and they're just like full of compliments and blah 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 blah. And then when I'm like, yeah, this doesn't work for me, then all of a sudden it's like, I'm dumb. I don't know what I'm talking about. And all of a sudden I become like the opposite of what they had initially told me I was to start with.
Here's something to think about too. This one gal I know, she's very sweet, but she's very vain. And she's like, all men are narcissists. I attract narcissists. No, what it is she likes the narcissistic personality, which is the guy who's got no fare, comes up, asks her out, right? That personality type is the kind that's not, she's too good for me. I'm not going to ask her out. She's too pretty. I'm sure she's already got a boyfriend. So all the people who she would like, that, who she would probably genuinely like, now don't ask her out, or she doesn't think that they're the right one for her immediately because she likes the narcissist bad boy. And then she thinks that's what she attracts. It's like, no, that's what you are attracted to, because those are the ones that come and talk to you. So like for myself, I have horrible social anxiety. I know it might sound funny. I can give a talk in front of 1,000 people, but going and asking a woman to dance is like painful. So when you're, for you ladies, a guy that's, holding back or whatever, he could very well just have a lot of nerves, especially if you get tired of getting turned down. You got to think about what those guys go through if they're getting turned down, 20 times out of 21 times. That's a lot of rejection, and you either get jaded to it or it gets harder. So if a guy asks you to dance, just say yes. if he asks you to get married at the end of that dance, just say no.
That's
So, we're kind of butting up against time here, but Shawn, there are, as you know, as being a moderator of LDS dating, there are like just a million different topics. We could slice this pie
Oh yeah.
till the cows come home. I've really enjoyed having you on. I really, it's been nice getting to know you a little better. Would you be interested in possibly coming back again and doing another tackle of some possibly, maybe, I think the one that we're looking to tackle a little more in depth is sex and how that relates to the LDS dating world, because that's always one of those topics that you throw that out there and suddenly it's a bomb. Yeah.
I have a lot of comments on that one.
Yeah. So would you be interested in coming back again?
Sure.
Okay.
If you guys want to moderate it more, that's fine.
Moderate the comments, you mean the chat?
No, moderate me more, that's fine.
Oh,
Hey, just keep in mind, I have like a lot of ladies I'm speaking up for, just so you know. So
Celeste has to represent the female.
I was representing all the private messages streaming into my.
I'm not in any way bothered by it. I mean, I take the amount of crap that I get is unbelievable. I kept for a long time. I kept a lot of the really nasty. I kept screenshots of the nasty stuff from some of the ladies. And it's funny because I wanted to give an example of how horrible some people were when they left. They'd send me these private messages, and and back to the estrogen idea, that women would be supporting the other gal who had left these horrible comments, like, oh, well, I'm sure she had a reason. It's like, no, I'm showing you the entirety of it. This is the entire conversation. So what I found is when I read them in a funny voice instead, which is sort of my Julia Child's voice, and I read it out like this, then it becomes funny and everybody enjoys it and they all want me to do more of them. But I haven't had anybody be mean lately, so.
Just wait. It's still the LDS dating world. Just wait.
No, I had one yesterday, actually. I forgot about it. It's like, I just don't care. But no, I understand your perspective, and I deal with this all the time when I have this conversation in the group. And so I understand what you're saying, but I think women need to stop introducing themselves like that.
No,
guys don't do it.
I agree. I don't think that should be what they come up with first either, because there's more to them. But again, I was the solo female on this panel, and so I had to kind of represent. So
I'll have another one on next time too, especially if we're talking about sex.
Amen.
Talk about sex.
Crime on that one, Whitney.
Amen and a women.
That's right.
Have you seen that meme with Kenny G, and it says, when a man loves a woman, kind of a women. It's funny.
Not Kenny G, is it?
Yeah. So anyways, yeah, Shawn, I really appreciate your time tonight. You're fantastic. I love your opinions that you have to say. So you're a wealth of knowledge in this. That's why we'd love to have you back again if you're willing. Do you have any more? Oh, one other thing I did want to discuss tonight before we leave, just real quick, give a plug in for LDS Dimensions, maybe tell a little bit about that, what that's all about, and then kind of let everybody know about that you're involved with.
So ldsdimension.com is my free dating site. Every week we put out an article of dating tips from Randy Gilchrist. We've got a couple hundred in there now, cover all sorts of toxic personality types, money, dating, sex, religion, faith, spirituality, long distance dating, etc. So the site, and there's more things I'd like to do with it, but it's free. And so I don't have the funds to just do whatever I want. But the idea is, like with Mutual, Tinder, that interface paradigm, I don't like it because it's meant to be instantly visually gratifying. It's like hot, nope, not hot, like this. And I don't like that. I like people, and I get people in here, their profiles, my favorite book is the Bible. No, it's not, more than likely. So I want people to actually get to know someone. So I try to get them to fill in their profiles more, but you can filter by geographic region, and you can save all those characteristics. So if you want, between 40 and 50, within 50 miles of you, et cetera, you can save all these search criteria, and then you can re-execute it just by clicking a button, or you can do new ones. but we want people in healthy and happy relationships. And a big part of that is diminishing toxic behavior patterns. And sometimes it's a painful process to do, but LDS Dimension is a good place to go. There's about 5,000 people in there right now. I suppose if I made an app and put it in the app store, then I would get more people, because then they would just look for apps. But
how many people did you say you have in there currently?
About 5,000.
About 5,000. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's not small potatoes, but if there's nobody in your area, there's nobody in your area. But I will say, if you come in and there's nobody in your area, don't close your account immediately, because now no one will ever find you. People come and go all the time. They get married, they get divorced. So, you set up, you work the systems. It's a numbers game.
It is a numbers game.
Gotcha. Well, again, thank you so much for being on tonight. It's been great getting to know you a little more. And I hope we can tackle a few more of these topics with you, because you have a lot to say about it. And oftentimes we get people on here and we start talking about it and they're like, what? I don't quite get it. Like, just go to the Facebook groups. You'll see what I'm talking about. It's all out there for all to see.
Yep.
So,
yeah. Let me know. I had fun. Thank you, guys. It's a pleasure getting to know you all.
yeah.
Fun playing tug of war with you.
All right. Well, we usually have a little bit of an after party afterwards, where we kind of have people we sort of open it up to the audience. If you want to stick around for that, answer any questions, that's up to you. It's certainly not required, but
Yeah,
I
sure.
think you probably would have quite a few people that want to ask you something. So
I can hang for 76, 78 seconds, something like that.
there you go. Perfect. We'll start the timer. All right. So everybody can unmute and